Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if post-war Naruto was in One Piece. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by AntonXIV and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. A New Threat. Uzumaki Naruto fought the urge to slam his head against the wall. Meetings like this would be the death of him. A council summit, another meeting of the minds for the elemental nations, meant hours of the same old arguments that never changed. The Security Council represented the might of the 5 great villages and the samurai of Tetsu no Kuni. Around the table sat the 5 Kage, Kakashi, Gaara, Mei, and Kuretsuchi, along with their advisors and the samurai leaders, Mifune and Akatsuki. Naruto and Killer Bee had seats of their own as the only surviving Jinchuriki. They'd been summoned to Tetsu no Kuni's capital days earlier by the daimyo. Now every eye in the room was locked on a single letter, its parchment marked by all 5 daimyo seals. This is troublesome, Shikamaru sighed, rubbing his temple. The 4th Shinobi War had ended 2 years ago, but the nations were still recovering. Populations were thin, the land scarred, and the last thing they needed was another crisis. The letter came from a group calling itself the World Government, an alliance of nations beyond their borders. They requested entry into the elemental nations and permission to establish a military base, claiming it would stabilize the region and curb illegal activity in the nearby seas. It was nonsense. For centuries, the elemental nations had lived under strict isolation by daimyo decree. Both samurai and shinobi had upheld that law without fail. And now, some foreign power was trying to walk right in. The lazy brat is right, a grunted. We've known there were other lands out there. We turned away anyone who came to our ports because the daimyo demanded it. This demand is too vague, Kuretsuchi added. And their so-called illegal activity doesn't originate from our shores. This feels like a ham-fisted cover to spy on us. Well, each of us has our own army, our shinobi forces are still recovering, and none of us is prepared for a major naval conflict, Mei said, her eyes narrowing. Unless one of you's been hiding an armada, we should tread carefully. The daimyo are firm on this, Mifune said calmly. They've already called the samurai to readiness. We repelled the last intrusion from the outside with the Sage of 6 Paths' help. We can and will do so again, though I do not know at what cost. We'll have to deny them, Kakashi said, his tone even. But we should do so in a way that buys us time. Send someone as a delegate and lock them up in negotiations. That gives us space to prepare for any reaction. I can go, Naruto offered, sitting up straight for the first time that meeting. I know how Iro Sennin ran his information network. No matter what we decide, we need to know what these people are really after. That's mighty fine, Mr. 9, B said with a grin, but negotiations ain't your what rhymes with negotiations. He trailed off, thinking hard. The groaned and, without warning, punched his brother straight into the wall. Shut up. This is serious. And nothing rhymes with. Among nations. B shouted from inside the crater, proudly scribbling notes. The room cracked into laughter as A buried his face in his hands. With Naruto and B in the same room, order never lasted long. All I gotta do is paint a giant no on their capitol building, right? Naruto smirked. Maybe add a tongue-out face for flair. Tsunade didn't even hesitate. Her kick launched him straight into the same wall as B. Both groaned, then shared a fist bump through the rubble. Despite his phrasing, Gaara said, B has a point. Naruto doesn't always make the best first impression. I agree we need information, but for diplomacy, I'll volunteer to serve as the official delegate. The others nodded. Very well, Mifune said. You two will represent this council. Keep us informed through the toads, Kakashi ordered, looking at Naruto. And let Gaara handle anything political. Geez, no trust at all, Naruto sighed. Then, seeing Tsunade's glare, he raised his hands. Alright. Gaara talks. I'll stand there and look pretty. Much better, brat, Tsunade said. Temari and Kankuro can manage Suna while I'm gone, Gaara added. They're capable of handling the day-to-day. It's settled, I declared. Uzumaki and the Kazekage will meet this world government. Meanwhile, we prepare for confrontation. It may not come tomorrow, but it will come. I won't be caught unprepared. Everyone nodded except Shikamaru, who looked ready to collapse. I'm going to have to do a lot of work for this, aren't I? He muttered. Troublesome people. Well, if you don't want to help plan things here, Kakashi said as everyone began to leave, you can always go with Naruto. Just know you'll be responsible for his every action. Shikamaru froze. On second thought, Hokage-sama, I think I'll stay. I have a wife and family. Chicken. Naruto called. Come on, Shika, last mission we had was loads of fun. That mission was so bad I had Ino erase it from my memory, Shikamaru shot back. Never again. Fine. Naruto huffed, sticking out his tongue. Gaara's more fun than you anyway. Gara didn't reply, just stared at his friend and quietly wondered if he would survive this mission. Outside, snow began to fall over Tetsu no Kuni, soft and silent. The world itself seemed to be holding its breath. Wandering tides. A rank oily stench hung over the calm belt. Even from the deck of his ship, Vice Admiral Momonga could smell the blood. The water was slick with it, stretching for miles across the horizon. Sea kings, some of them large enough to swallow a ship whole, lay dead and floating in the still sea. Their wounds were too precise for their death to be natural. Momonga tightened his grip on the railing. The supply convoy from G5 had mentioned finding a trail of carcasses like this, and he had dismissed it as pirate work. Now, looking at the devastation firsthand, he wasn't so sure. The sea itself seemed disturbed, as if something had torn through it with deliberate fury. After a day of tracking the carnage, his ship finally caught sight of a small vessel. Its mast was shattered, hull split, and yet it moved with surprising speed, propelled by a dozen oarsmen on deck. Two figures stood above them on the quarterdeck, their argument loud enough to carry over the waves. As the marine ship drew closer, the argument stopped. The oarsmen froze. And only then did Momonga notice something deeply wrong. Every one of the oarsmen shared the same face. Before he could issue a command, both figures jumped. They crossed a gap between ships as easily as stepping across a puddle, landing on the marine deck with effortless balance. The taller of the two was a blond man in an orange jacket with black trim, a green vest beneath it, and black pants cropped just above his ankles. His blocky sandals clacked softly on the wood deck. A metal plate marked with the kanji for oil kept his wild hair from falling into his face. He looked relaxed, almost boyish, but the ease in his posture spoke of someone who was long accustomed to surviving chaos. The Redeed beside him wore white robes trimmed in green, a tall hat marked with the kanji for wind. The tattoo on his forehead, the symbol for love, was stark against his pale skin. His expression was calm, almost serene, but there was weight behind his eyes that made Momonga's instincts flare. "Hey, does anyone here know the way to the world government?" The blonde asked, rubbing the back of his neck with a sheepish grin. "We've been sailing for 2 weeks and haven't seen a soul. Think we might have gotten a little lost." Momonga noted the movement of his eyes, how they flicked from one weapon to another, gauging spacing, numbers, and exits. The grin was pure foolishness. The gaze behind it was a soldier's. The Redeed let out a slow breath, looking faintly defeated. "We are delegates from Wano country," he said evenly. "I am Sabaku no Gara, Kazukiage of Sunagakure. This is my escort, Uzumaki Naruto of Konohagakure. We seek an audience with the Gorosei of the world government." He held up a letter with the official seal of the world government. Wano. That name alone froze the deck. Even the greenest marine had heard of the isolationist nation that existed in defiance of both Yonko and the government. For them to send delegates meant that something was shifting in the balance of power at sea. Momonga straightened, every ounce of formality returning. "I am Vice Admiral Momonga of the World Government Marines. We can offer assistance, but I must ask, how did you end up so deep in the comm belt? Did your eternal pose fail?" Naruto blinked. "Eternal what now?" "Your compass," Momonga clarified. "Oh, that thing. It stopped working when we left home, so I threw it away," Naruto said matter-of-factly. "We've just been using the sun since then." Half the deck collapsed in disbelief. Momonga stared, expression unreadable, as the Redeed sighed in long-suffering silence. "My escort is strong," Gara said, "but not a sailor. His patience is limited and his curiosity destructive." Momonga exhaled slowly. He'd met his share of eccentrics, but this one reminded him far too much of Garp. "Very well. I can escort you to our G5 base, where we can contact Marineford and arrange your audience with the proper authorities." "We would appreciate that," Gara said with a polite bow of his head. A deep roar split the sea before Momonga could reply. Water erupted skyward as a sea king lunged from the depths, blotting out the sun. Momonga drew his sword in one swift motion. "Battle stations." He barked, only to freeze when Naruto jumped lightly onto the railing. "Another one?" the blonde muttered. "Damn things never learn." His voice shifted, light but steady. "Boys. You know the drill." "You got it, boss." One of his lookalikes shouted from their crippled ship. The clones moved as one. The first wave struck the Sea King's jaw with a flurry of coordinated kicks that sent the monster's head skyward. Another wave appeared above it, driving their heels down in unison. The creature slammed back into the sea with a sound like thunder, crushing the smaller ship beneath its fall. For a long moment, there was silence. Then one of the remaining clones muttered, "Oops." The rest nodded solemnly before vanishing in puffs of smoke. Naruto looked back to the Marines on deck, hands behind his head, looking almost sheepish. Hey, old man. Any chance we could catch a ride with you?" Momonga said nothing for several seconds. He just watched a blonde grin at him, the wreckage smoldering behind them. Then he sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "Garp," he thought. "He fights like Garp. And the world doesn't need another one. Wandering tides. It took the Marines several days to reach their G5 base. During the voyage, Naruto and Gaara mainly kept to themselves, standing on the quarterdeck or leaning against the rail to watch the ocean roll by. To most of the crew, the blonde seemed restless, too loud, too cheerful, always moving, but Momonga noticed what the others didn't. For all his grinning, Naruto rarely stopped watching. Every shift change, every patrol, every small habit of the Marines, he catalogued without a word. The full act made him harmless. It also made him invisible. When they finally docked, G5 rose before them like a fortress carved out of steel. The base was half weathered and half rebuilt, scarred by old battles and new upgrades. Naruto let out a low whistle as they passed through the gate. Man, this place is huge. Bet it'd take 24 shadow clones just to mop the floor. Momonga didn't answer. He'd seen pirates near, nobles preen, and soldiers freeze at the sight of G5's cannons. This boy just smiled. He had his men escort the visitors on a short tour while he reported to Marineford. The den mushi on his desk blinked awake, its eyes narrowing as Fleet Admiral Sengoku's voice crackled through. Report. The disturbances in the comm belt were caused by 2 delegates from Wano, Momonga said crisply. They claimed to be emissaries seeking the Gorosei. They survived at least a week in the belt with no log pose and minimal provisions. Names? Uzumaki Naruto and Sabaku no Gaara, Momonga replied. If their abilities are any indication, they're dangerous. The blonde can create perfect duplicates of himself, hundreds, maybe thousands, and he fights with precision. Strong enough to kill sea kings. The Redeed calls himself Kazekage. He hasn't shown any abilities yet, but there's something about him the calm kind that only killers have. I wouldn't want to test him. Sengoku's voice went thoughtful. Wano never announced any diplomatic outreach. We can't let them near the Gorosei until we confirm their purpose. Bring them to Marineford. I'll deal with them myself. Yes sir. The line went dead with a soft click. Momonga exhaled through his nose, then rose to find his guests. He never saw the small, floating eye of sand crumble into dust near the ceiling. Gaara stood at the window of their quarters, arms folded. The grains of his sand armor shifted faintly beneath his cloak. They are already suspicious of us, he said when Naruto entered. Yeah, Naruto replied. He leaned against the wall, eyes distant. Can't blame them. If 2 strangers showed up in Konoha asking to meet the Fire Lord, I'd have them followed, too. Gaara glanced at him. You don't seem worried. Worry doesn't help, Naruto said, pushing off the wall. Observation does. These guys run tight, but not perfectly. They're disciplined, not heartless. The big one, Momonga, he's got rules. If he wanted us dead, he'd have tried it in the comm belt. Gaara studied his friend's expression. Behind the grin, the boy he'd once known had become something steadier, more dangerous in a quiet way. A thunderous crash shook the floor. Both men turned as a Marine flew past the open door, landing unconscious against the far wall. Naruto stood framed in the doorway, lowering his fist with a sheepish grin. Alright, who's next? He called. Anyone here actually strong enough to make me sweat? Momonga's voice answered like drawn steel. Me, if you keep hurting my subordinates. Naruto smiled wider, settling into a toad stance. Bring it, old man. Enough, Naruto. Gaara's voice was low, cold. We are not here to play. Represent your station properly. For a moment, the air between them vibrated with tension. Then Naruto let the stance drop and scratched the back of his head. Fine, fine. Just having a little fun. Momonga exhaled, sheathing his sword. Fleet Admiral Sengoku has requested your presence at Marineford. We leave once the ship is resupplied. It's a short journey, 2 weeks, maybe less if the winds are favorable. We appreciate your help, Gaara said. It's not our intention to cause trouble. Momonga gave a curt nod. See that you don't. Wandering tides. Marineford 2 weeks later. Naruto wasn't playing with the Marines. He was studying them. Every shove, joke, and sideways glance went into the same invisible notebook. Jiraiya had drilled the lesson into him long ago. Never underestimate fools and never let them see when you're serious. For all his reputation, the old man had hidden behind his own absurdities, perversion, bravado, and bad verse, building a spy network under everyone's nose because they all thought he was just a wandering author. If Naruto managed half of what his godfather had accomplished, he'd call that a victory. Besides, if everyone here was as stiff as Gaara and that Momonga guy, he'd have thrown himself overboard just for something to do. Still, the last few days had taught him plenty. Strength varied. Numbers didn't. G5 had been scuffed and half-patched, but it was still a fortress big enough to swallow most of the old shinobi villages. Marineford, though, Marineford was something else entirely. The harbor churned with ships like schools of fish, cannons glinted from tiered battlements, and white-uniformed Marines marched in endless drills. It wasn't elegance that impressed him, but organization. No matter how strong the shinobi nations were, a war with this kind of machine would drown both sides in bodies. Lamanga himself was still a mystery. The man had too much discipline to show off, too much restraint to give anything away. Naruto couldn't decide if that made him dangerous or dull. He forced his attention back to the present as he and Gaara were ushered through the headquarters. Polished corridors, guards at every turn, the same rigid order everywhere. Finally, they entered an expansive room lined with flags, a round table waiting at its center. 2 men occupied the far seats. The first sat ramrod straight, with a braided beard and a hat shaped like a seagull perched neatly on his head. The second had gray hair, a jagged scar near one eye, and wore his uniform like a bathrobe, coat hanging from his shoulders while he picked at his nose. Lamanga saluted smartly. Uzumaki Naruto and Sabaku no Gaara of Wano. Then he stepped back. The upright man offered a small, practiced smile. Fleet Admiral Sengoku. Welcome to Marineford. He turned toward his companion, who had already dozed off. With a sigh, Sengoku slammed a fist onto the man's head. Garp, if you insist on attending my meetings, at least stay awake long enough to introduce yourself. Huh? The old man blinked. Who are the brats? You said there'd be food. He actually pouted. Naruto snorted out a laugh he couldn't quite hold back. Sengoku closed his eyes like a man calculating blood pressure. Vice Admiral Garp, he said flatly. Gaara inclined his head. Sabaku no Gaara, Kazekage of Sunagakure. The title slid right past Sengoku, who offered a polite nod, despite a lack of understanding. Then his gaze found Naruto. Naruto grinned, sprang to his feet, and threw a handful of smoke pellets. Music blared from nowhere, a shamisen riff, bright and ridiculous. His voice boomed through the haze. Trained on Mount Mamboku, heir to the Icha Icha legacy, the unstoppable, untouchable, undeniable Toad Sage, Naruto Uzumaki. The smoke cleared to reveal Naruto covered in kabuki paint, posing atop a gargantuan toad. A basket of sakura petals sat uselessly in a bucket in Gaara's hands. Gaara. You were supposed to throw those. Naruto shouted, pointing accusingly. Before Gaara could answer, Garp vaulted onto the table. Ghost. He roared and punched Naruto and the toad clean through the wall. Sengoku dropped his forehead to the table. That, he muttered, was Uzumaki. Was it? Garp asked. Naruto popped back through the hole, face clean of makeup, grin intact. Nice hit, old man. He launched a spinning kick that sent Garp crashing through the opposite wall. Naruto followed, laughing. Gaara, stoically ignoring the chaos, addressed Sengoku. Wano received a letter from your government, he said evenly, returning the room to business by sheer force of composure. Your leaders requested permission to construct a naval base, citing increased pirate activity. Gaara produced the official letter that the daimyo had received from the Gorosei. Sengoku straightened, matching Gaara's tone. Correct. My superiors believe a base would stabilize that region of the Grand Line. Wano sees no benefit in that stabilization, Gaara said. We intend to maintain the isolation established by our ancestors. However, if you share intelligence on pirate movements, our forces will assist in suppressing them. Sengoku studied him for a long moment, fingertips pressed together. The Gorosei may not appreciate that answer, he said at last. But cooperation has its value. I'll inform them of your offer and await instructions. In the meantime, can I ask that you remain at Marineford as our guests? As long as necessary, Gaara replied. There's always a solution, if we're willing to talk. Wandering tides. The courtyard was already a warzone. Naruto smirked as he slipped under another of Garp's punches. This was what he'd been looking for back at G5. Despite the gray hair and laugh lines, the old man hit like a freight wagon. Every punch felt like catching a bowling ball with his ribs. Tsunade's love tap still hurt worse, but it was close, and that was saying something. Chunks of shattered stone littered the ground, and marines ringed the edge of the crater as 2 figures traded blows that cracked the air itself. Naruto's orange jacket blurred as he ducked under Garp's swinging fist. His counter-strike landed solidly, forcing the old man back a step. Not bad, brat. Garp laughed, grinning widely. But you'll have to hit harder than that if you want me to notice. Naruto smirked. Careful what you wish for, old man. They collided again, fists clashing in a shockwave that sent marines stumbling. Naruto bounced back lightly, shaking out his wrist. Garp barely moved, though there was a spark of respect in his grin. The crowd was split between horror and fascination. Are they sparring or trying to sink the base? One whispered. Yes, another muttered grimly. Naruto shifted his stance, chakra rippling around his palm. A Rasengan formed, pulsing with energy. He lunged again, feinting low. Garp turned into the hit, catching Naruto's attack with his bare hand. Flashy, Garp said, grinning at Naruto's dumbfounded expression. But you need more than tricks to hurt me. His counterpunch sent Naruto skidding through the dirt. Naruto sat up from the new crater he'd made, wiping blood from his mouth and grinning. Okay, yeah, that one hurt. Garp cracked his neck. You talk too much. Get back over here so I can beat some respect into you. Naruto's fingers crossed in his trademark hand seal. In an instant, the courtyard filled with smoke and a dozen identical blondes. I told you flashy tricks, Garp began, but the clones were already upon him. The next minute dissolved into utter chaos. Marines scrambled for safety as copies of Naruto swarmed the old marine hero, yelling battle cries that ranged from inspiring to nonsensical. Garp laughed like a man half his age, meeting each with gleeful precision. Every punch of his scattered another clone into smoke. Every swing of his arm was measured, efficient, testing, not killing. And through it all, both men smiled. Finally, the last clone vanished, leaving the real Naruto crouched atop a broken column, breathing hard. You're tough, old man. Tougher than you look. Garp grinned, adjusting his collar. You should see me before breakfast. Naruto pointed at him. You might want to check your coat. Garp raised a brow and peeled it off his shoulders. The back was now covered in bright orange paint. Crooked kanji, doodles, and one unmistakable phrase. I wear pink underwear and bow to the awesomeness that is Naruto Uzumaki. The Marines froze. Then, all at once, they burst into helpless laughter. Garp blinked down at the coat, then at Naruto. How do you know I wear pink underwear? Naruto collapsed laughing. Even a few officers couldn't hold it in. Wahahaha. Garp laughed. You should join the Marines, brat. Nah, I like my current job. Naruto shot back. I don't have to play fair. The sound of boots on stone silenced them. Sengoku stood at the edge of the courtyard, arms crossed. His expression was unreadable, somewhere between exasperation and exhaustion. Garp, he said slowly, why is half my yard destroyed? Training, obviously, Garp said without hesitation. Sengoku's eyebrow twitched. Training. Emergency readiness, Garp added helpfully. What do you want? Garp shouted. Give me another 5 minutes. I'm teaching this brat a lesson. Garp grunted, pointing at Naruto. Naruto raised a hand from the ground. Seagull Jiji's right, we might have gone a little overboard. Overboard? Sengoku repeated, voice like thunder. You've leveled half a building. Nothing we can't fix, Garp said. Then, turning, he shouted to his men, alright, you heard the fleet admiral. You break it, you fix it. Tools, now. The Marines snapped to it with weary familiarity, rushing to fetch supplies. Sengoku pinched the bridge of his nose. One of these days, Garp, I'm going to have you court-martialed just to make a point. Wouldn't stick, Garp said with a grin. Unfortunately, Sengoku muttered. He glanced at Naruto. And you, Uzumaki, if you value your diplomatic immunity, stay out of my reconstruction budget. Naruto saluted, still grinning despite the reprimand. Got it. No more architecture practice. Sengoku sighed and walked off, muttering about early retirement. Garp, grinning again, raised his voice to the Marines now sweeping rubble. Make sure it's clean before sunset. If Sengoku comes back down here and sees dust, I'm blaming all of you. The collective groan rose from the Marines, but they moved faster. Naruto chuckled. You've got this down to an art. Art? Garp scratched his chin. Nah. Just habit. Naruto's grin softened. You're not half bad, old man. And you, Garp said, walking away, are exactly the kind of trouble I used to punch sense into. He waved lazily over his shoulder. Don't blow up the place while I'm gone. Sengoku's temper is worse than mine. Wandering tides. High above the commotion and out of easy sight, in a shadowed office behind layered shutters, a different conversation was already in motion. A man sat behind a desk, the den mushi perched like an idol atop a mound of paperwork. When the tiny speaker crackled to life, his voice was cold and precise. Sengoku is too soft, the caller said. He's going to ask for a compromise in favor of Wano. Proceed to plan B. Those who are not part of the world government are our enemies. All who oppose us will be crushed, the man behind the desk replied without hesitation. I will arrange an unfortunate accident for our guests. Very good. See to it that there are no mistakes. The den mushi clicked and went silent. The man did not move immediately. He stared at the device for a long moment, as if cataloging what the call had set in motion. Cipher does not make mistakes, he said to the empty room, the words colder than the moonlight through the shutters. Wandering tides. Night settled over Marineford like a blade laid flat across the sea, silent, gleaming, waiting. The fortress slept beneath a wash of silver light, its walls pale against the dark. Only the creak of mooring chains and the distant sigh of the tide disturbed the stillness. Too even. Too rehearsed. The kind of calm that hid teeth underneath. Inside their quarters, Naruto lay on his bunk, eyes closed, but mind awake. Across the room, Gaara sat cross-legged against a wall, hands resting loosely on his knees, head bowed in quiet meditation. The faint whisper of sand shifting beneath his cloak was the only sign that he was aware of anything at all. Then came the sound. A single footstep, soft, deliberate. Another. The door eased open with the faintest scrape of a hinge. A shadow slipped through. The intruder moved like water, each motion controlled, his breath perfectly measured. He paused beside the bed, dagger drawn, the blade catching a narrow gleam of moonlight. "Awake, you may go blow for blow with Monkey D. Garp," the man murmured, voice low and certain, "but asleep, you're no match for me." Naruto's eyes snapped open. "And you talk too much for an assassin." He moved. Chakra flared along his arm, silent and bright. The air hissed as a razor-thin edge of wind formed around his hand. One strike. His hand pierced clean through the man's body. The man convulsed once before collapsing against Naruto. Across the room, Gaara's eyes opened. Sand rippled outward from under his cloak, ready to defend them. Naruto silently dropped the body, turning it over. No ID, no tags, nothing to trace. Gaara's gaze shifted toward the window. "There's another." Before Naruto could speak, Gaara's sand shot outward in a blur. A heartbeat later, it returned, dragging another limb form through the open window. This one's neck hung at an unnatural angle. Gaara dropped the body next to the other. Naruto sealed both bodies into a scroll, movements efficient and wordless. When the seal flared shut, he tucked it into his jacket. "Someone didn't like our answer to their request." "Then we let the evidence speak," Gaara replied. Naruto nodded, forming a seal. A clone appeared in a puff of smoke, standing beside the bed. Naruto handed the scroll to it. "Get to the meeting room. When Sengoku shows up tomorrow, give him this. Tell him we can meet again in neutral territory. It's clearly not safe for us to stay here." Gaara glared at the clone, wordlessly conveying the seriousness of the situation. The clone gave a sloppy salute. "No jokes, no graffiti, got it." He vanished in a flutter of leaves. Naruto sighed. "Can't say he isn't adaptable." They slipped out through the window, landing softly on the roof. The night air was cool, carrying the scent of salt and smoke. Marineford below them gleamed with ordered geometry, lanterns in rows, patrols in neat formation. Naruto's voice was barely a whisper. "We need to steal some of those log poses. Momonga was watching me too closely and would have noticed if I had taken one." Gaara said nothing. His attention was fixed ahead, toward a central courtyard where moonlight pooled like silver water. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then the air itself seemed to shift. The temperature dropped. The light bent. A massive figure stood in the open below them, tall as a tower, coat black with a white crosshair and paw print insignia. A thick Bible rested in one hand, his face hidden by shadow and the rim of his barriered hat. Naruto exhaled. "You've got to be kidding me." The giant's voice was calm, almost gentle. "If you were to go on a journey, where would you like to go?" Naruto stared. What kind of assassin asks first? "Back to the desert," Gaara said evenly, attempting to buy time. The Kazuki-age reached for a scroll in his robes. The man inclined his head once. "Very well." In a flash, the giant vanished. Gaara's eyes widened when the man reappeared beside them, arm already drawn back and moving with impossible speed. The Kazuki-age had expected power, but not that blinding acceleration. He tightened his grip on the scroll that held his gourd-embraced sand armor, preparing to block the attack. Naruto's instincts clicked into place. He sensed the change in the air, felt the gathering of force. He leaped to Gaara's side, ready to meet the blow, but the punch never landed the way they expected. When the man's hand thundered forward, the air itself answered. A pressure wave spread out from his palm, silent and absolute, and it wrapped around both shinobi like a living hand. The shock wave did not merely hit them. It took them. They were lifted and carried, faster than sight, as if the world had been folded and thrown. Marineford disappeared beneath them, the courtyard a scattering of light and roof lines. For a single, dizzying instant, they were weightless, falling, and flying all at once. Then the night swallowed them, and the stars blurred. Moments after the two vanished, a tall, graying man in a black suit dropped into the courtyard, boots striking the stone. He stared up at the empty air, anger tightening his face. "Bartholomew Kuma, what did you do to them?" he barked. Kuma's voice was flat, almost conversational. "I sent them to the desert, Agent Lasky. Is there somewhere you wish to go as well?" His tone matched his movement, with the same cold indifference. Lasky spat in frustration. "Fucking Shichibukai. We should have killed them all when we had the chance. And you're supposed to be the loyal one." He ground his heel into the paving stones. Turning, he glared at the sky, wondering which desert Kuma had sent them to. Pulling a small den mushi from his coat, he spoke into it. "Put out an alert. Find these isolationist weaklings before they disappear into whatever hole they crawled out of. I want all stations to report it tomorrow." Wandering tides. Naruto's clone had hidden all night in the conference room, as a potted plant. Pretending to be harmless while half the fortress slept, he waited. He ignored the massive man who had come into the room shortly after he had. Once the sun was up, the conference room doors creaked open. Fleet Admiral Sengoku's boots clicked across the floor. Naruto's clone almost wilted in relief. One more hour and it might have dispelled out of sheer boredom. Sengoku entered with the air of a man who had already lived this day too many times. He paused when he saw the tall figure seated at the far end of the table. "Kuma," Sengoku said, voice clipped. "Why are you here?" "I have another meeting." The massive Shichibukai didn't move. "To help a friend." Sengoku's tone hardened. "Define help." "I used the advantages of my position," Kuma said. Sifrapol was meddling in matters outside its reach. "I removed their targets to a distant unspecified location." Sengoku's eyes narrowed. "Their targets wouldn't happen to include a blonde fool and a polite retard." Kuma inclined his head once. "Those would be the ones." Sengoku exhaled slowly, rubbing his temple. Being fleet admiral was supposed to mean control. Instead, it felt like triage. Sifrapol, the Shichibukai, the Gorosei, every branch of the government pulling at its own version of justice, while the Marines cleaned up after them. Before he could decide how to handle this newest mess, the potted plant trembled. Smoke burst upward, and Naruto appeared in a crouch on the table, grinning. "He's telling the truth," Naruto said before either man could react. "Gar and I had some uninvited guests last night." He pulled a scroll from his vest and opened it with a flick of his wrist. The 2 dead assassins were laid bare for the admiral to see. "I don't know how you handle assassination attempts around here, but in Wano, well, you can see the result. I thought we were under your protection, old man." Sengoku's gaze dropped to the bodies, then back to Naruto. His mouth flattened into a line. This was quickly getting out of hand. "Can I assume you are a clone?" Naruto nodded. "Yup. Anyway, it's clear that we aren't safe here. I believe you, Seagull Jiji, but somewhere here sent assassins after us." "They were not assassins." A new voice came from the doorway. Sengoku looked up to see Agent Lasky step inside, immaculate in his black suit, posture crisp enough to cut paper. "Agent Lasky," Sengoku said, already weary. "What brings Sifrapol to my conference room this morning?" Lasky offered a shallow bow, all formal courtesy and no warmth. "My 2 trainees were conducting an exercise when these delegates saw fit to kill them," he said, the pause deliberate. "Sifrapol does not tolerate interference. Our assessment is simple. These men are not who they claim to be. They operate beyond our oversight and stand to gain from destabilizing the world government." Sengoku's patience thinned. "And your proof?" "Dead agents," Lasky replied smoothly. "Their presence here is evidence enough." Sengoku studied him for a moment, then turned to Kuma. "Anything else I should know?" Kuma simply shook his head. The fleet admiral's decision came in a sigh. "Then I must recuse the Marines from this. If Sifrapol considers these men imposters, it's your jurisdiction. The Marines will not interfere. We have only their word that they are from Wano and nothing else. The letter they brought back originated here, but it could have been intercepted or stolen. I leave it to Sifrapol to uncover the truth." Lasky straightened slightly, victory glinting behind his calm expression. "As you wish, Fleet Admiral." Naruto frowned, watching the exchange. This wasn't going the way he wanted, but he caught the subtle flick of Sengoku's eyes, the slightest nod of warning. The Admiral was giving him a door and pretending not to see it. "Well, damn," Naruto said, breaking the silence. "Guess we underestimated you." His smirk widened as he met Sengoku's gaze. "We were planning to lure you out, separate you and Garp from your men, overwhelm you on neutral ground. But you caught us." Lasky's hand drifted toward his coat. Sengoku didn't move. Naruto winked at the fleet admiral. "Tell Garp I'll kick his ass next time I see him." He raised a single finger in parting. "Until next time, geezers." He vanished in a puff of smoke. Sengoku stared down at Lasky. "You'll excuse me, agent, but I have real work to do. Unless you need something else." Lasky's jaw clenched, but he said nothing as he turned and left. The room fell quiet again. Sengoku looked down at the spot where the bodies had been. The smoke had cleared, but the faint scent of ozone and something older lingered. "Sifrapol," he said under his breath. "Too many shadows. Too many secrets. And too many agendas." He straightened, staring at the door Lasky had gone through, thinking on how he would be able to uphold the law through all of this. The law is written clearly, yet they get to interpret it however they like and make new ones when it suits them. Wandering tides. For more than a day, they had sailed through the sky, weightless streaks above a world too vast to comprehend. Islands and oceans blurred together in flashes of blue and green, gone before their eyes could name them. The world was bigger than either had ever imagined. They hit the ground with a thunder that split the sky. Sand and stone erupted outward. Shockwaves rolled for miles. When the dust cleared, the 2 shinobi stood unharmed at the center of a crater shaped unmistakably like a giant bear paw. Naruto blinked, brushing sand from his hair. Well, that was interesting. He studied the print beneath his feet. Never seen a technique like that before. Unable to make sense of it, he turned to their surroundings. Dunes rose like mountains, swallowing the horizon. He wasn't kidding, Gaara. You got your wish. We're in the desert again. Indeed. But not home. Gaara crouched to scoop up a handful of sand. He let the grains fall through his fingers, his expression distant. The composition is wrong. Less iron. Softer. Far away, Naruto's clone burst, and a flood of memories slammed into him. Marineford, Cipher Pole, Sengoku's frown, everything at once. He groaned, grabbing his hair. Shit. Bachan's going to kill me. Stupid clone, stupid old man. Ignoring Gaara's questioning look, Naruto bit his thumb, ran through the summoning seals, and slammed his hand to the ground. Smoke burst from the impact, revealing the diminutive figure of Fukasaku, the Elder Toad. "Well now, Naruto," the sage said, blinking. "Been a while since you called me. What's the trouble this time?" "I need you to reverse summon one of my clones straight to Kakashi's office," Naruto said quickly. Something came up. Big. Fukasaku frowned. "And this message is different how? You've been sending those runts back and forth for weeks." Naruto sighed. "Because this time, if Bachan sees what I'm sending, she might kill the messenger. Literally. So maybe tell everyone near her office to run before you unseal him." The Elder Toad pinched the bridge of his nose. "You always make things complicated." Gaara's voice cut through their exchange. "Naruto, what happened at Marineford?" Naruto hesitated. "You're not going to like it." "I already don't." "Right, so maybe I'll tell you later. When we're not in the middle of a desert you might actually kill me." Gaara's glare said enough. The sand at his feet rose like a living tide, engulfing Naruto in a split second. Gaara held the tomb shut for several seconds before partially opening the sand cocoon. Naruto was gone, replaced by a log pinned with a note and a scroll. "Gaara. My clone tried to explain things to Sengoku, but a guy named Lasky showed up. Claimed to be part of some organization called Cipher Pole. He claimed his men were training when we killed them. Even with Sengoku half on my side, my word didn't hold up. Long story short, we're probably wanted for assassinating world government officers." "Wait, don't bury me yet." Sengoku didn't buy Lasky's story, but politics tied his hands. He had to declare us unaffiliated with Wano. Since we never revealed official ties, the daimon and everyone back home should stay clear of the fallout. So here's the upside. I've got a perfect cover to start building our information network. You, unfortunately, are now part of it. I'll give you a few days to cool off before I find you. Try not to kill me on sight. Naruto. P.S. Gaara, you'll have to be faster next time. I'm not sure where the log came from, but praise its noble sacrifice. Below the first note was another, addressed to Fukasaku. Fuka-sensei. This scroll's packed with clones. Please take it to Kakashi and Bachan and then run like hell once you open it. If one survives long enough to finish explaining, I'll call it a win. Tell Shima Abachan I said hi. Naruto. Gaara's expression didn't change as he handed the letters to the old toad. "I cannot guarantee that you will have a summoner for much longer. I'll start searching for his replacement," Fukasaku muttered, tucking the scroll under his arm. With another puff of smoke, he vanished back to Mount Mamboku, already dreading Shima's reaction. Between Jiraiya, Minato, and now Naruto, the toads had a worrying pattern of partnering with geniuses who cause disasters. When the smoke cleared, Gaara stood alone. The desert was quiet, endless, and familiar in its emptiness. He took a slow breath. Alone was something he understood. Unsealing the scroll he had been reaching for at Marineford, Gaara summoned his gourd back to his side. If the world now branded him a criminal, he would not be caught unarmed. He peeled off his Kazukiage robes and sealed them away, then donned his red trench coat and grey flak jacket. The garments were heavier, yet honest. The clothes of a shinobi, not a statesman. Extending his chakra into the surrounding dunes, he felt the sand respond. The flow was different here, heavier, foreign, but still sand. He pushed his awareness outward. For miles, there was nothing and then, movement. A faint pulse of life half buried in the nearest dune. But the sweep of his hand, the dune split apart, collapsing in waves until a woman and a large turtle were revealed beyond it. She had been listening. Her surprise vanished quickly, replaced by calm composure. "I am in no mood for games," Gaara said. "Who are you, and what do you want?" The woman was tall, with dark hair, wearing a white cowboy hat, a purple corset, and a matching skirt, her fur coat elegantly draped over her shoulders. Even in disarray, she radiated control. "I go by Miss All Sunday," she said. "I represent an organization called Baroque Works. Recent events have left us short of enforcers. We could use someone with your abilities." Gaara considered her calmly. Shinobi were mercenaries by trade. This was, at its core, an offer of employment. And employment meant information. "My services aren't cheap," he said. "Money is not an issue," she replied smoothly. "We pay well, and I would pay more, personally, to have someone like you at my side." "What's your real name?" Gaara asked, uninterested in the pretense. Her eyes flicked to his, and for a moment, something unguarded passed between them. "Robin," she said quietly. He inclined his head once. "Gaara. What would the job entail?" "For now, act as my bodyguard," Robin answered. Things are about to become unstable in Alabasta and I'd prefer to have someone watching my back. Ara disappeared in a swirl of sand and reappeared beside her. Robin's hand twitched toward the dagger at her waist, but he made no move. A faint smile touched her lips. This could work. Welcome to Baroque Works, Mr. 5, she said. I imagine you'll be a strong asset in the days ahead. Wandering tides. Naruto ran north for hours, the desert stretching endlessly before him, a golden ocean with no horizon. The sun pressed down like a hammer. Heat shimmered off the dunes, warping the horizon until sky and sand blurred together. The only sound was the hiss of wind dragging grit across stone. He didn't stop. The desert wind stung his face, but it was quiet, the kind of quiet he needed after too many people, too many lies, and too much noise. Eventually, shapes rose from the dunes ahead. A half-buried city swallowed by sand. The buildings weren't ancient, but they might as well have been. Sand filled the streets, spilled through broken windows, and buried doorways to their lintels. Roofs had caved under dunes. Faded lettering still clung to a cracked sign half buried near the gate. Only the faint outline of a wire remained. Naruto frowned. This place looks like Gaara visited and had a temper tantrum. The place was silent. Not a voice, not a footstep. Then he caught it, a dull, rhythmic shhk thud from somewhere deeper in the ruins. A shovel. Curiosity piqued, Naruto jogged toward the sound. In what had once been the city square, an old man was digging into the sand with methodical determination. The remains of a well sat before him, half buried and crumbling. His clothes were sun-bleached, his skin leathered by years under the sun, but his movements were steady, tireless. "Boy! Gramps!" Naruto shouted. "You planning to dig your way to the next country?" The man nearly jumped out of his skin, then turned, and when he saw Naruto, his weathered face split into a smile bright as daylight. "Welcome to Yuba, my boy," he said, voice rough but warm. He scrambled up the cracked stone shaft with surprising energy and thrust out a hand. "Name's Toto." Naruto grinned and shook it. "Uzumaki Naruto. Nice to meet you, old man. So where is everyone?" The happiness dimmed in Toto's eyes. "Gone," he said simply. "I'm the only one left in Yuba. The drought and sandstorms have lasted 5 years. Everyone else had to leave." Naruto looked around at the buried homes and silent streets. "Then would you stay?" "Because Yuba is my home," Toto said, straightening his back. His voice carried both pride and exhaustion. It was meant to be a stop for merchants and new oasis for Alabasta. "I promised a friend I'd see it through. So I dig. I'll keep digging until I strike water again or the desert takes me, but I will never give up." Naruto studied him for a long moment. The man's hands were cracked, his clothes threadbare, but his eyes still burned with impossible hope. Naruto knew that kind of faith, the kind that hurt to hold but refused to die. It was the same look he'd seen in his own reflection more times than he liked to admit. A slow grin spread across his face. "Well, that's a promise worth keeping." He clapped his hands together and the square erupted with movement as hundreds of Narutos filled the streets like a living tide of orange. Toto froze, staring as the clones surged toward the well, already shouting instructions, hauling sand, clearing rubble. Naruto crossed his arms, smirking. "How about a little help? With this many hands, we'll have your well and the city cleared before sunset." Toto's shovel slipped from his grip. His eyes filled with tears that caught the light like glass. Then he laughed, a sound half choked with disbelief, half pure joy. Naruto smiled softly. "Come on, Jai-san. Let's get you out of the sun. You've earned a break and I want to hear everything about this place." As the clones worked, laughter and voices rose again, echoing between the half-buried walls. The wind carried the sound across the dunes and for the first time in years, Yuba sounded alive. Chapter 2. Joining the fray. The wind had barely settled the sand from their journey when Gaara began to regret working for Robin, or Miss All Sunday, as she insisted on being called. They had crossed the desert in silence and he'd appreciated it. Silence left room for thought, for calculation, for peace. Leaving him room to contemplate this mission. But when they reached a lonely outpost called the Spider Cafe, that peace ended. After introducing him to the owner, a pleasant woman named Paula, Robin gave him a straightforward order. Wait. The senior agents of Baroque Works would be gathering here soon. She had preparations to complete before the whole team could arrive in Rainbase. The command contradicted his role as her bodyguard, but she dismissed his objection with a wave. It isn't dangerous yet. Gaara disliked orders given without reason and being ignored even less. He had considered following her anyway, but information was currency. He had little of it in this strange land. If Baroque Works possessed any, he intended to collect it. So he stayed, hoping to learn from his new compatriots. He should not have. Paula, at least, was efficient. She brought food, tea, and silence. It did not provide information, but there was solace in it. For a time, Gaara managed to enjoy the stillness of the cafe, the hum of desert wine through the glass. Then his new colleagues began to arrive. The first pair called themselves Mr. Four and Mrs. Christmas, a mismatched duo whose constant bickering could have woken the dead. The woman shouted, the man mumbled back with the patience of a boulder, and every exchange tested the limits of Gaara's composure. The names were no better. Miss All Sunday, Mr. Four, Mrs. Christmas, and apparently, he was Mr. Five. If this was a ranking system, it was idiotic. He began to suspect this assignment was punishment disguised as employment. Karma for his violent youth. When their squabbling reached an unbearable pitch, Gaara rose. I will return at the scheduled hour, he said to Paula, who nodded, wisely offering no protest. Outside, the desert stretched vast and empty. But not for long. From the dunes came voices, high-pitched and theatrical. 3 men danced their way across the sand, each pose more flamboyant than the last, glitter catching the dying sunlight in ways that should not have been possible in a desert. Their leader, a man in feathers and eyeliner, sang about Akama and friendship. Gaara had fought demons less flamboyant. He considered killing them simply to restore balance to the world. Then the dancer stopped mid-spin, struck a pose, and introduced himself as Mr. Two, Bone Clay, complete with jazz hands. Gaara stared. Of course you are, he muttered. The trio vanished towards the cafe in a flurry of laughter and perfume, leaving him alone with the fading sun. No amount of pay justified this level of psychological trauma. When the clock finally struck 8, Gaara turned back toward the Spider Cafe. The desert wind carried new sounds, scuffling, and then silence. The tall, dark-skinned man emerged from the twilight, dragging 2 unconscious Akama by their collars. Bare-chested, muscles coiled, a black one tattooed across his chest, he looked carved from purpose. Gaara watched as the man reached the cafe door, hurled the limp bodies inside, and followed without a word. Moments later, Mr. Two's shrill outrage echoed through the walls. Gaara exhaled, pinching the bridge of his nose. Why did I volunteer for this mission? He murmured. With Naruto involved, I should have known it would end in madness. He sighed and stepped inside. If the universe had a sense of humor, Naruto was somewhere suffering worse. The night air shifted as he crossed the threshold, carrying with it the scent of cheap liquor, perfume, and trouble. Wandering tides. The air shimmered with heat, but for the first time in years, Yuba felt alive again. The sands had been cleared, the wells reopened, and sunlight touched streets that hadn't seen it in months. Naruto had done most of it himself, or rather, a small army of himself. His clones worked in shifts, hauling sand, patching walls, and dredging wells. It was nothing complex, just basic labor and a lot of hands. The kind of work that took him back to his D-rank mission days in Konoha. Back when helping a farmer fix his roof or cleaning out a pond felt like saving the world. He'd promised Toto that he'd help, and Naruto always kept his promises. I cannot thank you enough for your help, Naruto. Toto exclaimed, voice trembling between gratitude and disbelief. The nearly skeletal man looked years younger already, a spark of hope chasing the weariness from his face. Naruto waved it off with a grin. No thanks needed, Jai-san. Just doing what anyone should. He had claimed the center of town as his base of operations or, as Toto called it, a strange little miracle. A hammock stretched between 2 palm trees, a shade cloth overhead, and 2 chilled drinks waiting on a small table made of driftwood. The old man had nearly fainted when Naruto unsealed the setup from a simple scroll. This is nothing, Naruto laughed. You should have seen what my godfather Jiraiya used to carry. Man practically had a palace folded up in his back pocket. Said a real traveler's secret is being ready for emergencies and baths. Toto chuckled, still eyeing the scroll as if it were a holy relic. I've never heard of anyone having 2 devil fruits, he said, curiosity outweighing suspicion. Or are these scrolls things your godfather made with his power? Nah, Naruto said, resting his hands behind his head. No fruits involved. Anyone from home can learn to make and use them. Just seals. A bit of chakra, a bit of ink. They're part of how we fight, train, live. He smirked. And all those clones running around. Just me. One person's worth of stupid spread really thin. I'm just a simple man, Naruto, Toto said with a wheezy laugh. The world's full of strange powers. I've stopped trying to decide what counts as normal. The only thing I know is that I owe you a debt I can't repay. Naruto shook his head, smiling softly. You don't owe me anything. A little sweat, a little chakra, it's worth it to see you smile again. Toto's gaze wandered toward the dunes. Another storm will come. It always does. All of this may be buried again before the week is out. Naruto stretched, squinting at the horizon. Maybe. But I told you I'll find a way to stop that. I've got a few more tricks up my sleeve. We'll bring this oasis back for good and people will come home again. Believe it. There was something infectious about his confidence, half recklessness, half faith. Toto couldn't decide if it was youth or something deeper. Either way, he found himself believing. So tell me, Naruto, Toto said at last, pouring more tea, are you a pirate? You're not from Alabasta, and you're definitely not a marine. Nah, Naruto said, rolling one shoulder lazily. I'm just a wanderer who got lost on his first trip away from home. He paused, grin widening. I've met some marines, though. I don't think I'd fit in with their whole follow orders and wear pants properly thing. You don't know much about this world, do you? Toto asked, shaking his head. Not really. My country's complicated. We don't let anyone in or out. My friend and I snuck away to see what was out there. Then some guy with a weird power, probably one of those fruit users, sent us here. Gar got mad, so I gave him space. We'll meet up again. We always do. He smiled at the sand. As for everything else, you've told me more than I ever knew. Toto chuckled. For someone who's never left home, you don't seem too worried about being lost. Nope. Getting lost is half the fun. You seem more that way. Naruto tipped his coconut cup toward him. Besides, things back home are peaceful now. I fought for that peace, but I guess I got restless. You're young, Toto said kindly. Restlessness is a blessing. You learn to enjoy stillness when the years slow you down. He leaned back, watching the wind tease the newly freed palm fronds. As for pirates, the Grand Line belongs to them and to the marines who chase them. With a few exceptions, those are the only souls mad enough to sail these seas. Naruto raised a brow. You keep saying that word pirate like it's supposed to mean something. What's One Piece, anyway? Toto nearly dropped his cup. You really have been living under a rock, haven't you? His tone softened, more amused than scolding. Come. Lunch first, then I'll explain. You'll need food to make sense of the world you've stumbled into. Right on cue, Naruto's stomach growled. He rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Guess that's a yes. They stepped inside the humble house, cool shade swallowing the desert glare. Toto moved with the ease of long habit, setting out cups and a battered kettle. I'm no scholar, he said, but I can tell you what I've learned. I helped an Nefertari family once, long ago. You hear things when your king sits at the world government's table. Naruto leaned forward, elbows on the table, eyes bright with curiosity. Alright then, Jai-san. Start anywhere. I'll catch up. Toto's lessons came between sips of tea and the hum of desert wind. He spoke of a man called Gold D. Roger, whose death had cracked the world open and sparked what people now call the Great Age of Pirates. 3 great powers had risen since then. The world government, the Yonko, and the Shichibukai, each holding the others in check through a balance too fragile to last. Naruto listened, filing every piece away like a puzzle. He did not understand all the details, but the picture was taking shape. He could feel it, the undercurrent of injustice that ran beneath the surface of the world, the kind that made men like Toto suffer while others grew rich on their misery. He learned of the drought-choking Alabasta and the rebellion led by Toto's son, Koza. Years ago, when Yuba began to dry, Koza had begged King Cobra to use something called dance powder, a substance that could pull rain wherever it was burned. The king refused, unwilling to steal water from another land. Most of Alabasta's rain still fell over the capital, and whispers of corruption had spread like wildfire. When Princess Vivi vanished, those whispers turned to fury. I can see why they're angry, Naruto said, swirling the last of his tea. But moving the rain just moves the problem. Someone wins, someone else loses, and everyone blames the king. If he's really the man you think he is, I doubt he's hoarding rain for himself. Toto sighed, the sound like wind over dry stone. I've tried to tell Koza that. But my son's blood runs as hot as these sands. He couldn't watch people die while he sat idle. He started to say more, but stopped. His eyes widened, fixed on the horizon. No, not again. Naruto followed his gaze. The wall of sand towered on the edge of sight, devouring the light as it raced toward them. The air changed too suddenly, too sharply. There were no warning gusts, no swirl of natural wind. The chakra in the air prickled against Naruto's skin. This was not a storm. It was crafted. Toto. Inside, Naruto ordered, standing. His voice had lost its easy lilt. I'll handle this. It's an act of nature. Toto protested, snatching up his shovel. No one can stop a sandstorm. Naruto grinned. I've made a career out of doing the impossible. Might as well keep it consistent. Toto squared his shoulders, shovel in hand. Then I'll supervise. Can't let you take all the credit. That earned a laugh, brief and bright in the rising wind. I like you, Toto. Naruto formed a familiar hand seal. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 20 Narutos burst into being, filling the air with a rustle of displaced sand. Together, they took position along the edge of town, wind swirling around their palms as they breathed in unison. Ton. Datenpa. Wind release. Great breakthrough. The clones exhaled a wall of hurricane-force wind that slammed into the oncoming storm. The two forces collided in a howl of sand and fury. Naruto felt the pressure in his bones, the chakra drain across his clones like threads snapping one by one. For a heartbeat, the storm fought back. Then it broke. The desert wind scattered, thin and harmless, leaving behind a hazy stillness and a sky scraped clean of dust. Naruto brushed grit from his jacket and turned back toward Toto with a quiet smile. Told you. The old man stared at him, open-mouthed. Then his shoulders sagged and he laughed, a raw, grateful sound. You really did it. That's so. Naruto took a deep breath, feeling the ache settle into his arms. Nothing wrong with a little wind management. Toto bowed low, trembling with emotion. I can never repay you for this. Don't worry about it, Jai-san. Naruto tilted his head toward the sky, where the last of the sand was falling like gold dust. Not everything needs payment. Sometimes you do the right thing because you can. The words lingered between them, a simple creed spoken with such sincerity that Toto believed him completely. Naruto's smile faded as he turned north, eyes narrowing. Is there a town that way? Before Toto could answer, a voice shouted from somewhere high above. A human blur arced out of the sky, trailing smoke and chaos, before crashing into Yuba with an impact that rattled every grain of sand in a mile's radius. When the dust settled, a crater smoked in the middle of town. Water came a desperate croak from the pit. Toto rushed forward and tossed down his canteen. 2 gulps later, a boy shot upright like a spring uncoiled, grinning, sunburned, and utterly ridiculous in a red vest and straw hat. Thank you. I thought I was gonna die. He spun toward Naruto, eyes sparkling. Clone guy, you're awesome. Join my crew. And fight me. Naruto blinked. What? The boy stretched, his arm pulling back like rubber. Gomu Gomu no pistol. The fist shot forward like a cannonball. Naruto tilted his head and took the blow square in the forehead. Jireya's protector absorbed the blow with a dull thud. Naruto grinned. Not bad. But I'm not fighting you. What's your name? Monkey D. Luffy. I'm a rubber man and I'm gonna be king of the pirates. Join my crew. Naruto rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Alright, Luffy. Pass my test and maybe I'll think about it. Which is better, a toad or a frog? Frog. Luffy declared without hesitation. Wrong, Naruto said, grin widening. But I like the spirit. Before Luffy could respond, laughter drifted across the dunes. A caravan approached. 2 women atop a camel, 3 men on foot, and what looked suspiciously like a raccoon reindeer dragging behind on a sled. The orange-haired woman leaped down first, fury in her eyes. Luffy. She shouted. You drank all our water. You fought a scorpion. And then you ran off alone. What kind of captain are you? Naruto chuckled, recognizing the rhythm of an exasperated teammate scolding. It felt like home. The veiled blue-haired woman dismounted more carefully, her voice soft but urgent. Excuse me, she asked, ignoring the chaos. Is this where the rebel base is? Toto froze. His hands trembled, then clenched. No. You can't join them. King Cobra isn't to blame. He began throwing whatever he could grab, a cup, a bowl, even his sandal. He stopped only when Luffy stepped forward, voice uncharacteristically steady. We're not here to join, he said. We're here to stop them. Toto blinked. No one came to Yuba to stop the rebellion. You're too late, he said finally, sinking to his knees. They left months ago when the oasis dried. They're in Katoria now, ready to march on the capital. The camel grunted. The reindeer sat up, rubbing its head. Eyelashes says that's where he found him, delivering weapons for the rebels. The group erupted in chaos again, shouts, accusations, flailing limbs, until the orange-haired woman snapped, enough. Silence fell. Dust settled. Luffy turned to the veiled woman. Hey, Vivi, where's Katoria? Everyone winced. Toto's eyes went wide. Did he say Vivi? The woman hesitated, then lowered her veil. Toto stared as though seeing a ghost. I've lost some weight, he murmured, voice trembling. It's me, Toto. Mr. Toto. Vivi cried, throwing her arms around him. He hugged her tight, tears streaking the desert dust on his face. We've been worried sick. Your father would never betray us, you know that. Please, stop this rebellion before it destroys everything. Naruto stood nearby, quietly smiling as the others gathered around the reunited pair. It reminded him of Konoha, of second chances, of hope clawing its way through ruin. When Vivi pulled away, Toto wiped his eyes and managed a smile. The rebels aren't here, he said, but you're all welcome to stay the night. Pick any in. Relief rippled through the group until several sets of eyes turned toward Naruto. He blinked. What? Do I have something on my face? Mr. Toto, Vivi asked, who is this? Naruto grinned. Don't worry, princess. Your secret safe. I'm not even from this country. He clapped his hands together and a puff of smoke exploded outward, swirling with petals and a faint shimmer of music. Hailing from a distant land. Trained by the world's greatest pervert, Jiraiya the Sage. The one, the only, Uzumaki Naruto. He struck a triumphant pose atop a squat grinning toad that had appeared just long enough for a high five before vanishing again. Naruto wiped off imaginary face paint and nodded solemnly. Thank you, thank you. I'll be here all week. Most of the crew collapsed into the sand. Luffy, the reindeer, and the kid with goggles sparkled with admiration. Awesome. Luffy shouted. Oi, Naruto, join my crew. I need a dancing frog man when I'm king of the pirates. Dancing toad man, Naruto corrected. Pop quiz. Best color in the world. Red. Close, but no. Luffy deflated for a second, then grinned wider than ever. Naruto laughed. You're fun, kid. He looked at the group, the chaos, the warmth, the promise of trouble, and smiled. You're all insane, he said fondly. I like you. Wandering tides. The Straw Hats were an odd bunch. Endearing, infuriating, and impossible to ignore. Spending the night with them in Yuba had been entertaining. He'd sat back with a grin, watching chaos unfold like clockwork. Laughter, arguments, ridiculous stories. They were pirates, sure, but they were good people. The kind who bickered like family and fought like hell for each other. Luffy reigned over them all as captain, though reign might have been generous. Respect wasn't exactly their strong suit. Still, they followed him, even when he charged straight into madness from the sounds of their stories. Zoro fit the first mate's role well enough. Quiet, grounded, the type who solved problems. Nami kept the ship and the idiots from falling apart, her sharp tongue doing as much work as her navigation. Usopp, for all his shaking knees and false stories, was resourceful, always tinkering with some strange gadget that somehow worked. Sanji cooked like a man possessed, every plate a reminder that the world still had beautiful things worth fighting for. Topper patched them all up afterward, his small hands sure ran steady in a way that didn't match his timid voice. They balanced each other out, strength and heart, chaos and care. Even Vivi, though not truly one of them, fit naturally among their laughter. She smiled more when she was with them, but Naruto could see the weight behind her eyes. She wasn't a pirate. She couldn't be. Duty chained her where the others were free. By sunrise, Naruto had decided to tag along. Yuba's quiet charm and old man Toto's company had been a welcome break, but he couldn't stay. He still needed a ship, a network, and a team, all things that required motion. For now, though, he had a feeling the Straw Hats were worth following. Trouble clung to them like a shadow, and Naruto had always been drawn to the noise before the storm. They set out that morning, heading southwest toward Katoria. The plan was simple. Reach the rebels, talk to Koza, and stop the war before it reached the capital. At least, that was the plan until Luffy stopped walking. The sand crunched as he dropped to the ground and crossed his arms. I quit. What do you mean, you quit? Nami snapped. This isn't the time for one of your stupid jokes, Luffy. The others started protesting too, a chorus of disbelief, until Luffy looked up, eyes clear, voice firm. I want to go after Crocodile. The words hit harder than any shout. Vivi froze, shaking her head. Luffy, no. Even if you stop Koza, he cut in, that won't stop Crocodile. He's the one behind all this. The drought, the fighting, it's all him. You can't end a storm by talking to the wind. You have to face what's making it. But if we go after him now, Vivi began. Then we stop pretending, Luffy said simply. You want everyone to live. I get that. But a war this big, someone's going to get hurt. You can't change that. Luffy. You're hurting her feelings. Nami tried, but Sanji caught her arm, quietly shaking his head. He understood before anyone else that this wasn't cruelty. It was truth. What's wrong with not wanting people to die? Vivi snapped, her voice cracking under the weight of it. Nothing, Naruto said, stepping forward. His tone was calm, gentle. That's not what Luffy's saying. Her eyes glistened as she glared at him, the outsider daring to explain her pain. Naruto didn't look away. People die, princess. That's not cynicism, it's life. And right now, someone somewhere already has. This rebellion's been burning too long for clean hands. Vivi's shoulders slumped. The first tear slipped free. It's not the rebels' fault, she whispered. I know, Naruto said softly. Neither of us said it was. But you have to face the fire if you want to stop it. And Luffy, he's already walking through it. The pirate captain stood, brushing sand from his shorts, and walked up to her. Vivi, you can't do this alone. None of us can. But we're your crew, and we're your friends. So we're doing it together. We'll risk our lives for you because that's what Nakama do. The others nodded, one by one. Zoro with quiet conviction, Nami with weary resolve, Usopp with trembling pride, Sanji with a small, certain smile. Even Chopper, still wilting in the desert heat, puffed out his chest and nodded. Naruto smirked. Guess that makes it unanimous. You don't know me well, but I'm in. There's enough suffering in this world. I'll take every chance I get to stop more. Vivi's tears spilled freely then. Thank you, she said, her voice barely more than a whisper. All of you. Luffy grinned, sunlight catching on his teeth. Good. Then where's this crocodile guy? I'll kick his ass, and this whole mess will fall apart. Vivi wiped her eyes and turned to Nami. The map, please. The navigator tossed it over and Vivi unrolled it across the sand. The rebels are here, she said, pointing toward Katoria. They're marching toward Alubarna, the capital. Her hand moved north. And this is Rainbase, Crocodile's base of operations. It's an oasis city, full of water. The drought never reached it. Naruto frowned. That's convenient, he muttered. Almost like he wanted it that way. His eyes lingered on the map, tracing the direction of the wind across the dunes. The last sandstorm had rolled in from the north, from Rainbase. The realization settled in his chest like a weight. So that's where it started, he thought. Figures. Vivi nodded grimly. He lives there. It's also the last place untouched by war. Then that's where we're going. Luffy declared, already jogging off toward the horizon. Luffy? Rainbase is that way. Nami yelled, pointing in the opposite direction. Naruto laughed, following after them as the crew erupted into chaos again. Yup, he said under his breath, definitely worth a trip. Wandering tides. Far from the dunes, Rainbase gleamed like a false oasis. Its towers caught the light like blades, gold reflecting off the shallow water that ran through its streets. Beneath that brilliance, in the heart of the city, something colder moved. Gaara followed the other agents through the marble corridors of rain dinners. The air was perfumed, heavy with smoke and the faint tang of salt water. The casino above thrummed with music and laughter, but here in the lower levels, the sound faded into a steady, oppressive hush. The meeting chamber was a cathedral of glass and shadow. An immense aquarium loomed behind the walls, and the slow movement of crocodiles traced ghostly patterns of light across the polished floor. The air was thick enough to taste. Robin entered first, calm and precise, her voice carrying easily in the silence. For years, I have served as intermediary for Mr. Zero, she said. But now, he wishes to speak for himself. Her eyes swept the room, pausing briefly on Gaara before moving on. It is time to begin the final stage of our plan. Operation Utopia. The doors opened again. Smoke drifted in ahead of the man who cast it. A fur coat brushed the floor, gold gleamed at his belt, and a single cigar burned between his teeth. Crocodile walked like gravity had bent to his will, each step slow and certain, every movement heavy with control. He took his seat at the head of the table, exhaling a curl of smoke that hung in the air like a storm cloud. Operation Utopia, he said, voice rough and deliberate. The culmination of everything we've built. Robin handed out slips of paper. The shuffle of parchment was the only sound. Paula, Mrs. Doublefinger, hesitated. But why destroy Alabasta? You're sponsored by the world government. Crocodile smiled, thin and sharp. Wealth and titles vanish. Armies endure. When this kingdom falls, Baroque works will rise to rebuild it in our image. His words hung like smoke over still water. Gaara unfolded his own paper. You will act as my bodyguard during the rebel attack on Alubarna. I will give verbal instructions as necessary. Robin. He burned it to ash over a candle, the flame reflected in his eyes. Gaara kept his attention on Crocodile. Crocodile continued. At dawn, the rebellion begins. By nightfall, Alabasta will be mine. Failure is not an option. No one spoke. Even the bananadiles in the tank seemed to slow their movements. Gaara watched the smoke curl upward from Crocodile's cigar and thought of the desert outside, endless, patient, and unyielding. Men like this always mistook control for strength. The desert had buried better tyrants than him. A rasping voice broke the silence. Then you should wait. Every head turned. The bandaged man stood at the top of the stairway, half leaning on the rail. His face was gaunt, his eyes bloodshot, his movements unsteady. Yet the tremor in his voice was not fear. It was exhaustion. Mr. 3. Gasped Mr. 2, hand flying to his cheek. You're supposed to be dead. I killed you. Mr. 3 descended a few steps, limping. Almost. But not quite. I came back for another chance. Crocodile didn't move. The cigar smoldered between his fingers, a faint red eye in the dim light. Another chance. He said, voice flat and heavy. I went to the Spider Cafe like you ordered, Mr. 3 said quickly. But there was a mistake, the Straw Hats, they. You told me they were dead, Crocodile interrupted, tone deceptively calm. I received the report myself. I never made that call, Mr. 3 said, confusion cutting through his fear. My Den Mushi was destroyed. Someone else must have. Crocodile's eyes narrowed. Smoke coiled upward in a slow spiral. That explains why the unluckies never returned. The temperature seemed to drop. The room held its breath. He rose from his chair. You got rid of one or two, didn't you? He asked quietly. Mr. 3 swallowed hard. Well about that. What? The information was wrong, he blurted. There were more of them than we thought. I barely. The words died in his throat. Crocodile's hand closed around his collar, dragging him forward with effortless strength. The golden hook glinted as it caught the light. You failed me, Crocodile said. Mr. 3 stammered, reaching for air. Please give me another. The warlord's grip tightened. The moisture drained from the man's skin as if the life were being wrung out of him. Cracks spread across his face, his lips splitting, his eyes sinking back into a face turned to parchment. Water, he rasped. Crocodile smiled faintly. Then crawl. He released the corpse. It hit the floor with a sound more like dust than flesh. The floor opened beneath the body, a hidden hatch sliding away to reveal the dark water below. Mr. 3 fell into the water. Crocodile brushed a fleck of ash from his sleeve. Standing, he tapped on the glass walls, getting the attention of one of the bananadiles. Feeding time. The room remained frozen. No one dared to move as Crocodile saw the death of his former subordinate. Ara's gaze never left the spot where Mr. 3 had fallen through the floor. To him, the display was nothing new, only another man pretending his brutality made him strong. In the land of wind, monsters like Crocodile had been born from every war. The desert didn't remember their names either. The silence after Mr. 3's death hung like smoke that refused to clear. Nobody moved until Crocodile did. He leaned back in his chair, exhaled a lazy stream of cigar smoke, and spoke as if nothing had happened. "Since some of you seem confused," he said, drawing a folder from his coat, "let's start again." He scattered a handful of photographs and one wanted poster across the table. Faces slid across the polished glass, catching the reflection of the tank light above. "These are the Straw Hat Pirates," he said. "A small crew. Persistent. Nothing more." Ara looked down at the images. The girl with bright orange hair and sharp eyes that measured everything around her. Another, blue-haired, her smile polite but haunted. A green-haired man with the posture of a fighter who had already chosen how he wanted to die. The last sheet was an official document. A wanted poster. A boy with a straw hat and a grin that spoke volumes to anyone willing to pay attention. Ara felt something shift in him. He'd seen that kind of smile before, the kind that didn't waver, even standing on the edge of a blade. He was here on the Grand Line because of a person just like that. The 30 million Beery reward meant little, but the name printed above it made him pause. Monkey D. Luffy. Gar recognized the surname. After all, Monkey D. Garp had caught a Rasengan in his bare hand like it was nothing. If this boy were related to the Vice Admiral, if he carried even a fraction of that strength or that will, then Crocodile was a fool to call them a nuisance. The tension broke with Mr. 2's high-pitched squeal. "Wow. I met them. All of them." He leaped onto the table, spinning in a blur of feathers and perfume. "This one." He morphed into the Straw Hat Boy's face, then into the swordsman's, then into a long-nosed man not pictured in the photos. "And this one," he declared, turning into the orange-haired woman before striking a pose over the image of the blue-haired girl. "And she's Miss Wednesday." A few agents applauded. Most stared. "Yes, thank you Mr. 2, Crocodile said without looking up. His voice didn't rise. It didn't have to. "We know who they are." He reached across the table and tapped the image of Vivi. "The princess knows the leader of the rebels. She knows my name. If she reaches them, she will stop this rebellion before it begins." He flicked his cigar, ash scattering like gray snow. "We can't allow that." The room held its breath. "If you see them," he said quietly, "kill them." The words landed with a weight that seemed to press the air flat. Even Mr. 2's smile faltered for a heartbeat before returning in nervous exaggeration. Around the table, the others nodded, eager to leave before Crocodile's patience ran dry. Crocodile turned back toward the table, composure untouched. "You've all seen the price of failure," he said. "Now go. Prepare your assignments. Tomorrow, Alabasta changes hands." The agents rose slowly, chairs scraping against the floor like whispers of retreat. Gara lingered a moment longer, the faint reflection of bananadiles gliding through the water painting motion across his face. The bananadiles moved like shadows behind the glass. Crocodile thought they obeyed him. He thought the desert obeyed him. Gara knew better. The desert didn't serve anyone. It only waited patiently, endlessly, and hungrily. Crocodile would never have the power he thought he would. Behind him, a voice broke the silence, calm, smooth, and faintly amused. "You're not afraid of him." Gara didn't turn. "I've seen worse and buried them with little effort." Robin's heels clicked lightly against the marble as she approached. "You've traveled with others, haven't you?" "For a time," he said. "Someone loud," she mused, "unpredictable." He glanced over his shoulder, one brow lifting. He was curious what game she was playing it here. She must have seen Naruto with him before the blonde had disappeared. "You've done your homework." "I make a habit of it," she replied. "Men like you don't usually follow anyone. Whoever earned that must be unusual." Ara's lips twitched, the faintest ghost of a smile. Unusual is one word for him. Another. Inevitable. Robin tilted her head, curiosity sharpening. "A force of nature, then." "Closer to a storm that learns," Gara said. "But he's not what Crocodile should be afraid of." That drew her interest. "No." Ara's gaze returned to the glass, watching the bananadiles drift in slow, heavy arcs. "It's the boy with the straw hat." He's the kind that doesn't stop, not when reason fails, not when he's beaten. I've seen that kind before. Been beaten by them before. He paused. They burn everything in their path until only the truth is left. Robin studied him, curiosity flickering beneath her calm exterior. You sound almost impressed. I respect inevitability when I see it, Gara said. Even if it's reckless. Robin smiled faintly, a rare, genuine thing. And yet you travel with someone like that. Sometimes, Gara said. Sometimes I just make sure he doesn't die too soon. That sounds almost like friendship. Gara's expression didn't change, but the pause before he answered said enough. Maybe it is. I stopped trying to name it a long time ago. Robin's tone softened, still measured, still testing. You care about him. He didn't look away from the glass. He makes it difficult not to. Her smile deepened, not mocking, just understanding. That kind of loyalty tends to get people killed. I've died before, Gara said quietly. At least this one would mean something. Robin hesitated, the remark cutting through her composure. You've died before. He met her gaze. Once. It didn't stick. For a moment, the air shifted, quieter, heavier. Recognition passed between them, two survivors fluent in the same language of loss and distance. Then you already know what happens to those who stand too close, she said softly. Gara's voice was low, steady, and almost kind. You've been keeping yourself at arm's length for too long. Sooner or later, the fire's the only place left that feels real. That stopped her. The mask slipped just a little, enough for him to see the exhaustion beneath her calm. The kind that came from expecting betrayal and being right too often. Her hand lingered on the door handle. Distance keeps you alive, she said. Maybe, Gara replied. But it doesn't keep you human. Robin looked back at him one last time, cautious, thoughtful, and maybe, for a breath, hopeful. You should prepare for tomorrow, Mr. 5. The world doesn't forgive men who still believe in something. Then she turned, the door closing softly behind her. Gara stood alone in the hum of the machinery. The water shimmered faintly behind the glass. The crocodiles drifted in perfect patient circles, their reflections cutting across his face. He flexed his hand, sand curling lazily around his palm. Naruto would be somewhere above ground, laughing, surrounded by fools who still believed in impossible things. Gara envied that faith, though he'd never say it aloud. He looked back at the tank. The crocodile's golden eyes gleamed from beneath the water, cold and unblinking. Predators that didn't pretend to be anything else. Enjoy your meal while it lasts, he murmured. Wandering tides. The journey to Rain Bay stretched long beneath an endless sky. The desert moved like an ocean around them, each dune a frozen wave shifting with the wind. The heat pressed down through the day, the light so sharp it seemed to carve the world into gold and shadow. Naruto walked with the straw hats through that vast emptiness, saying little. He listened instead. Their rhythm fascinated him, the easy chaos, the laughter, the arguments that never seemed to mean anything. They were a family that didn't need words to stay together. It reminded him of what he'd once had and what he'd always been chasing. When night fell, they made camp in the lee of a dune. The air cooled to something almost gentle, and the sky unfolded in a spray of unfamiliar stars. Naruto lay on his back, hands behind his head, watching the constellations drift above him. The grand line sky felt alive, every star a pulse of energy in a world too vast to understand. He wondered what Jiraiya would have said about this place. A world where men became storms and oceans swallowed mountains. Where freedom had a price and dreams were the only law that mattered. The thought brought a smile to his face, small and wistful. Footsteps whispered across the sand beside him. Luffy dropped down onto the dune with his usual lack of ceremony, legs crossed, hat tipped forward. For a while, he said nothing. He just looked up. The sky's big here, Luffy said at last. Feels like it's watching us. Naruto chuckled softly. You sound like an old monk. Luffy grinned a little at that but didn't look away. When you travel long enough, you start noticing how things keep going. The sea, the wind, the stars. They don't stop for anyone. People chase them because they want to see how far they can go before they can't anymore. Naruto turned his head toward him. The words were simple, but they carried something heavier than Luffy usually let slip. It was the same kind of quiet conviction Naruto had seen in men who refused to give up even when the world told them to. You really believe that? Naruto asked. Luffy shrugged. You just keep moving forward. If you stop, the sea swallows you. Zoro sat a little distance away, sharpening his blades by firelight. He didn't speak, but Naruto saw him glance up for a moment, his expression unreadable. The steel hissed against the whetstone in an even rhythm that matched the slow sigh of the desert wind. Naruto looked back to the sky. The stars shimmered like chakra in motion, vast and untouchable. You know, he said quietly, I'm starting to get why people chase the sea now. Luffy stretched out beside him, folding his hands behind his head. Then you'll fit right in, he said with a sleepy grin. You might be right, Luffy. You might be right. Wandering tides. When morning came, the desert was still. A pale light bled across the dunes, painting them in gold and rose. The camp stirred slowly, the air cool enough that even the heat felt merciful. Naruto rose before the others and stood atop the ridge, watching the horizon shift as the first rays broke through the haze. Behind him, the Straw Hats woke in their own chaotic rhythm. Nami barked orders, Usopp groaned for 5 more minutes, and Sanji tried to coax the fire back to life for breakfast. Luffy sat cross-legged beside the dying coals, chewing on the last of their dried meat, with the calm patience of someone who had already decided that today would be a good day to start trouble. Zoro stretched in silence, his swords gleaming in the morning light. Naruto smiled faintly at the sound of them. It was noisy, familiar, alive. For a brief moment, he felt like he was back home, surrounded by voices that made the world feel simple again. He adjusted the strap of his pack and glanced north. The horizon shimmered with heat, and beyond it, a glint of gold caught the rising sun. A city taking shape out of the mirage. Rainbase, the city of dreams. Naruto exhaled, the wind tugging at his cloak. "Guess it's time," he murmured. Luffy joined him at the crest of the dune, hat tilted against the light. "You ready, Luffy?" Luffy grinned, eyes on the golden skyline. "I was born ready." Wandering tides. From the ridge above, the city gleamed like a mirage made real. Rainbase spread outward in perfect symmetry, canals and bridges weaving between gold-lit towers and trimmed gardens. The heat softened here. Mist drifted from the lake that ringed the massive pyramid at the center of it all. The casino sat alone, suspended on a shimmer of blue, water spilling in lazy arcs from its edges. A giant crocodile statue crowned the top, its jaws open in permanent triumph. Naruto folded his arms. So that's Crocodile's place. Guy really wants people to know who's in charge. Yeah, Nami muttered, shading her eyes. A warlord with a marketing problem. The group made their way down the slope and through the city gates. Voices, laughter, the clatter of coins and glasses, the rhythmic splash of canal boats passing under bridges, Rainbase was alive. Every surface glittered. Every person looked like they didn't have a care in the world. Naruto watched it all, feeling the strangeness of it settle in. The people acted as though their country was not on the brink of a civil war. Water ran in open channels while the rest of Alabasta starved for it. He could almost hear the imbalance humming beneath the noise. "This place feels wrong," he said quietly. Vivi nodded. "Crocodile rescued the city years ago. His name scares off anyone who would attack this place. The people think he's their savior. And it never stopped raining here like it did other places." "It's good business," Naruto said, his tone dry. Luffy had stopped listening halfway through. He was staring straight at the golden pyramid at the heart of the city. "So that's where he is." Nami grabbed him by the vest before he could take a step. "Don't even think about it." "But he's right there." "Exactly," she snapped. "And we don't have food, water, or a plan. You run in now, and you'll drown before you even touch him." Usopp nodded quickly. "I vote for not drowning." "Seconded," Sanji said, though his eyes were already scanning the crowded streets. "Let's restock first. Vivi's right, we don't know how long this fight will take." Luffy groaned. "You guys are no fun." "You can pick your fights later," Zoro said, adjusting the swords at his side. "Crocodile isn't going anywhere." Naruto smirked. "Listen to your crew." They ducked into the market streets, blending with the tide of people. The air was cooler here, the sound of water lapping against the canals constant. Shopkeepers shouted, peddling charms against bad luck or tickets for the casino. Marines strolled the walkways in small groups, their presence casual but deliberate, like guards who knew the odds were already fixed. They found a small cafe overlooking the water. The owner brought them pitchers of cold water and plates of fruit, the kind of simple luxury Yuba hadn't seen in years. For a few minutes, it almost felt peaceful. Luffy was already fidgeting. "Can we go now?" The fact that food held little allure to him showed how much their captain wanted to get after Crocodile. Nami groaned. "Fine. Usopp, go with him. Bring back as much water as you can carry. The rest of us will wait here. Once we have that, we can go after him." Usopp pointed at himself. "Why me?" "Because he'll go straight for Crocodile without you," Nami said, as if it were the simplest truth in the world. Luffy laughed, already heading down the street with Usopp trailing reluctantly after him. The crew watched them disappear into the crowd. Zoro tilted his head. 2 minutes before trouble. "Optimist," Sanji said. Vivi smiled faintly, though her eyes stayed on the pyramid. "Crocodile will know we're here soon enough." Naruto's expression shifted, calm but alert. "Then let's make sure we're ready when he comes looking." It didn't take 2 minutes. The gunshot echoed through the city like a starting bell. Then came the shouting, Marines barking orders, civilians scattering, the thud of boots growing louder by the second. Nami's head snapped toward the noise. "I told him not to pick a fight." Zoro was already standing. "You told Luffy not to breathe the last time, and that didn't stop him either." Naruto's expression softened into a knowing grin. Sounds like your captain found trouble. Within moments, Luffy and Usopp came sprinting down the main street, Marines pouring after them in full uniform. The two pirates were drenched, not from rain, but from the buckets of water they'd been fetching moments earlier. "Run for it," Luffy shouted as he barreled past. "Why are you running toward us?" Nami screamed. "It's a shortcut," Luffy yelled over his shoulder. Naruto blinked. A shortcut to what? Before anyone could answer, Marines rounded the corner. Their leader moved like smoke given shape, a white-coated figure whose steps barely disturbed the ground. "Captain Smoker," Nami shouted. "I thought Ace took care of him." The Marine's jaw gleamed as he pointed it at the fleeing pirates. "Straw Hat Luffy. This time, you won't escape." Luffy didn't even slow down. "Try me, Smokey." "Unbelievable," Nami muttered, grabbing Vivi's arm. "Everyone move. Now." The straw hats scattered, the city exploding into motion around them. Market stalls toppled. Water jars shattered. Vendors screamed as Marines surged through the streets. Naruto kept pace effortlessly, flipping over a fruit cart as bullets cracked behind them. "You guys always leave a trail this obvious." "Only when we're having fun," Luffy called back. "Remind me never to see you bored." They turned down another street, but the Marines were relentless. Every path funneled them into another squad. There was nowhere for them to hide, no way for them to escape. "At this rate, they'll catch us before we can do anything," Vivi shouted. "We need to split up," Sanji barked. "Right." Luffy grinned. "Everyone meet at the Croc's house." They scattered like startled birds. Luffy took off alone, drawing Smoker with him in a tangle of white mist. Sanji pivoted, planting himself between the Marines and the fleeing women. Usopp grabbed Nami's wrist, dragging her into a side alley. Zoro flanked Vivi, his hand on his sword. Naruto swept up Chopper before the reindeer could protest. "Hold tight." "Wah?" One jump took them over the first rooftop. Another kick of air carried them to the bell tower overlooking the square. From there, the whole of Rainbay sprawled beneath them, canals gleaming, crowds scattering like ants. Chopper clung to Naruto's shoulder, eyes wide. "That was amazing." Naruto chuckled. "You get used to it." He scanned the city below, his senses reaching out. "Let's see who needs help." Down in the plaza, Nami and Usopp stumbled into open ground in front of the casino. Marines behind them, hired thugs ahead. The circle was closing fast. "Out of the frying pan," Naruto murmured. "We've got to help them," Chopper said, panic creeping into his voice. "Patience," Naruto said calmly. "Let's see what they can do first. Give them a chance to grow." Nami was already thinking 3 steps ahead, eyes darting for an exit. Usopp was less subtle, shouting bluffs about an invisible army that didn't exist. The mercenaries laughed until Zoro came tearing through them like a blade through silk. Naruto sighed. "Or Zoro can take care of them. Guess they'll be fine." Luffy appeared a moment later. He grabbed the others, dragging his friends by the collar toward the casino doors. The man was chaos incarnate, but his timing was perfect. Smoker was already crossing the square, his body dissolving into clouds with every step as he chased the others into the casino. "Who's that?" Naruto asked. "Smoker," Chopper said quietly. "A Loja user. Smoke fruit. You can't touch him." Naruto's eyes narrowed. "So he turns intangible." "Yeah. Luffy can't beat him. His punches just go straight through." Naruto rested his elbows on the edge of the tower. "Then I'll have to figure out how to hit something that can't be hit." Chopper frowned. "You want to fight him?" Naruto grinned. "I want to understand him." The reindeer followed his gaze toward the casino. "What about the others?" Naruto's hands flashed through a sign. 2 clones appeared beside him and leaped into the golden building below. "They'll keep an eye on everyone inside. We're still missing Vivi and Sanji." "I can't smell them," Chopper said, sniffing the air. "Just all the gunpowder." "They'll show up," Naruto said confidently. He was right, partly. They watched as Vivi slipped into the plaza once the chaos had died down. Her veil pulled low, she moved carefully through the crowd, keeping to the shadows, ducking behind market stalls and crumbling pillars. From the bell tower above, Naruto and Chopper tracked her with ease. For all her effort, she blended well enough that no one below noticed her until she stepped onto the bridge leading to the casino. As soon as she did, trouble arrived. A tall woman in a fur coat waited at the far end, still as carved stone. The crowd parted unconsciously around her, drawn by some quiet authority. And beside her stood Gaara. At the back of the bridge, thugs blocked Vivi's retreat. Naruto froze. The noise of the square bled away. That gourd. That stance. The focused, unblinking stare aimed straight at the bell tower. "Shit," Naruto muttered. "He knows I'm here." Chopper's voice was barely a whisper. "That's Miss All Sunday. Baroque works second in command. She's the one who attacked us at Whiskey Peak." Naruto's jaw tightened. "Stay here. Find Sanji. I'll handle this." He left a clone with Chopper and vaulted from the tower, plummeting toward the bridge. The impact of his landing cracked the stone. Dust rippled outward as every head turned toward him. Vivi froze mid-step, caught between the strangers ahead and the danger behind. Miss All Sunday merely tilted her head, studying the newcomer with mild curiosity. Gaara didn't move at all. "Vivi," Naruto said, voice stripped of its usual playfulness. "Stay behind me." A shriek cut through the air. Something huge dove from the clouds, a falcon, metal glinting beneath its wings. Gunfire tore across the bridge, shredding the thugs that had begun to circle the princess. When the creature landed, it folded its wings, transforming into a man. "Princess Vivi," he said, eyes sharp and voice steady. "Are you unharmed?" "Hell." Vivi gasped. "You're alive." Naruto gave a low whistle. "Nice timing." Hell didn't take his eyes off the two figures barring their way. "So these are the ones who would destroy Alabasta?" Robin smiled faintly. "Such strong words. We prefer to think of it as a transformation." Her gaze slid to Naruto, curiosity flickering. "You're not one of the Straw Hats?" "No," Naruto replied evenly. "Just someone who doesn't like watching kingdoms collapse." "That makes two of us," she murmured. "We simply disagree on the method." Vivi's voice broke the calm. "You killed Igaram." Robin's expression didn't change. "Ah. Mr. 8. A shame. But necessary." Vivi started forward, fury overtaking her grief, but Naruto caught her wrist. "Don't," he warned softly. "That's what she wants." Hell wasn't so restrained. With a roar, he launched himself skyward, wings unfurling. "I'll tear you apart." Robin's hands crossed in front of her chest. Tress fleur. Clutch. 3 arms sprouted along Pell's back and neck. Twisting violently, the limbs broke him. The warrior screamed as his wings snapped. He crashed into the stone in a broken heap. "Hell!" Vivi cried, rushing to him. Naruto's chakra flared. Enough. Wind exploded outward, scattering sand and smoke across the bridge, but Robin didn't so much as blink. The gust curved harmlessly around her, parting like a tide. Behind her, Gaara finally stepped forward. "Your fight isn't with her," he said. Naruto's eyes narrowed. "Then it's with you." Sand rippled at Gaara's feet, coiling up his legs in a slow, deliberate spiral. His calm was absolute, but his voice carried weight. "You've made a mess, Naruto. I'm just here to collect." Naruto drew a kunai, spinning it idly. "You still angry with me?" "Yes." The sand surged forward. Naruto caught the first spear mid-thrust, his forearms glowing faintly with chakra to block the pressure. The force shoved him backward, boots grinding against the stone. "You could have just sent a letter," he grunted. "I did," Gaara replied, twisting his hand. The spear shattered, reforming instantly. "You ignored it." Naruto ducked the next swing, flipping backward onto the railing. "Still dramatic as ever." "Still reckless," Gaara shot back. Their powers collided, wind and sand roaring together, tearing the bridge apart grain by grain. Each strike was measured, controlled, but no less fierce. They weren't fighting to kill, yet neither was holding back enough to appear merciful. Vivi huddled beside the fallen Pell, unable to look away. Robin, watching from the sidelines, murmured, "Two storms meeting halfway." Naruto parried another strike, sparks flaring where kunai met hardened sand. "You've been busy," he said between breaths. "Working with the bad guys now?" Gaara's tone was icy. "I'm gathering information. And collecting debts." Naruto smirked. "This one's personal, huh?" "You left me surrounded by lunatics," Gaara said flatly. 3 days of their nonsense. Consider this compensation." Sand lashed forward. Naruto sidestepped, barely. It couldn't be that bad. Gaara's gourd split open. Sand shot upward, slamming Naruto down. The blonde hit hard, the air leaving his lungs in a rush. Before he could move, the sand wrapped tight around his limbs, squeezing until his ribs creaked. "You have no idea what hell you've put me through," Gaara said, stepping closer. His voice stayed calm, almost conversational. "So I'll take my pound of flesh." The sand spear drove through Naruto's shoulder. Pain bloomed bright and immediate, but he didn't scream. He just stared up, meeting Gaara's cool gaze. "Feel better?" Naruto rasped. "A little," Gaara admitted. He crouched beside him, voice low. "The attacks begin today. Help the Straw Hats escape. Get to Alubarna." Naruto's eyes flickered with understanding. "Got it." Gaara twisted the spear slightly, earning a quiet wince. "And that's for making me work with idiots." Naruto managed a strained grin. "Did you have to stain my jacket?" The pulse of chakra shattered the sand binding him. The blast sent dust spiraling across the bridge. When it cleared, Naruto stood near Pell's unconscious form, blood soaking his shoulder. Robin's gaze lingered on him a moment longer, then she turned away. "We're done here." Gaara's sand curled around them both, carrying them off in a rush of wind and grit. Naruto exhaled slowly, the weight in his pocket confirming what he already suspected. Gaara had left him something useful. He looked out toward the desert where his old friend had vanished and sighed. "Still dramatic," he muttered. Then he slung the broken falcon over his good shoulder and limped toward the alleys. Come on, Birdman. Time to live to fight another day. Wandering tides. Sanji rarely questioned his decision to join the Straw Hats. They were idiots, loud, reckless, half insane, but they were his idiots. Still, moments like this made him miss the baratie, the steady clink of plates, and the simple honor of cooking for people who did not drag him into international incidents. The casino glittered under chandeliers of cut glass and gold. Dealers smiled too widely. Guards in tailored vests lingered by every table. Laughter arrived a beat too late and never quite reached the eyes of the patrons. Beneath the glamour, everyone was armed or afraid. Sanji had planted himself at a row of slot machines, one hand on the lever, the other holding a cigarette. His crewmates had vanished into the back after Luffy, who, in his magnificent lack of foresight, had charged straight for the center of the storm. Even Captain Smoker had not come back out. Fantastic, Sanji thought. The idiot actually got himself caught. He flicked ash onto the carpet and was about to light another when a sandaled foot crushed the stub. A familiar voice said, casual and bright, you know, some people consider littering a crime. Sanji looked up. Naruto was there, grinning like trouble wrapped in sunshine. The blonde looked rougher than earlier, with a smear of blood across his shoulder, but the smile was intact. So you and Chopper got away. Good. Yup, Naruto replied. He's outside patching up a guy with wings. Took a hit, but he'll live. Naruto crossed his arms. You seen the others? I sent a clone to follow them, but… A cheer cut him off. Naruto's clone danced atop a gaming table, flinging poker chips into the air with theatrical abandon. Sometimes they have a mind of their own, Naruto sighed, watching his echo. Could have done something useful, but hey. I'm rich now. That's something. Sanji let a crooked smirk work its way across his face. I'm sure we will need the funds at some point. Naruto laughed. Yeah. Probably. Sanji took a long drag, exhaling slowly and deliberately. Luckily, I saw what happened. Luffy, Zoro, Nami, Usopp and Smoker all dragged into the back. Haven't seen them since. Captured, most likely, Naruto supplied. Sanji's eyes flicked to the wound on the blonde's shoulder. And you? Got stabbed, Naruto said with a shrug, as if it were only an itch. But, it got me this. He produced a tiny den mushi from somewhere and held it out. The shell was stamped with Baroque Works emblem. Sanji's grin sharpened. The predatory tilt returned to his smile. Perfect. We'll need a distraction. If I can draw Crocodile outside, you think you can keep him busy? Oh yeah, Naruto said. Give me 10 seconds and a reason. And the bridge? Sanji asked. We can't let him back in once he's out. Naruto's grin went narrower, wicked in the right way. Let's just say I can make it disappear. Sanji closed his lighter with a calm flick. Plans slid into place behind the smile like knives into sheaths. Alright, follow my lead. It's time for Mr. Prince to start the show. Wandering tides. Far below, Crocodile's laughter rolled through the stone corridors like distant thunder. It filled the room and swallowed smaller sounds whole. This room will destroy itself within the hour, Princess, he said, his voice smooth as shifting sand. Your choice. Stay and die trying to save 4 worthless pirates, or leave and die trying to save your people. Either way, you fail. Water answered his words. It rushed through graded vents with the sound of 1,000 small storms. The pumps that kept rain dinners breathing had been turned into instruments of ruin. Crocodile's cigar glowed red as he smiled, the ember a bright eye in the dim. You, the rebels, and that old fool digging holes in the desert, you have made my job easy. From inside the reinforced cell came a chorus of outrage. What did you do? Luffy's voice split the air. Zoro shouted, Nami screamed, Usopp cursed, and Smoker's voice came clipped and dangerous, even through the rising din. Crocodile glanced back only once. He let a miniature sandstorm spin to life in his palm, a raw, twitching cyclone that hissed like a living thing. He held it up as if it were a toy to show a child. Ar watched in silence. The motion was excessive, yet the result commanded respect. The sand didn't obey Crocodile. It was him. Every grain turned to his will without strain or command. A living extension of his body. A man of sand, not a man controlling it. How could such a thing exist? His own power came from magnetism and from the lasting impact of being Shikaku's vessel. The faint pulse of iron in every grain allowed his bloodline, his discipline, to control the sand. His sand moved because he guided it. Crocodile's sand moved because it had no choice. Was this the true power of these devil fruits? To become the element itself? Gaara couldn't tell whether that was mastery or madness. He only knew that if such power came from a fruit, it stripped away something vital in return. No control that complete came without a cost. And suddenly, he understood Robin's look when they'd first met in the dunes. The curiosity in her eyes. The way she'd spoken as if testing a hypothesis. She hadn't seen another weapon. She'd seen a countermeasure. Someone whose control might stand against the chaos she feared. A small storm in Crocodile's hand dispersed into dust. The gesture was meant to intimidate, a demonstration of dominance. Gaara only watched the grains fall, thoughtful. The straw hats erupted as one, fury gouging the air. What? That was you? I'll kill you, you sandy bastard. Crocodile drank it in. He allowed their anger to roll off him, and for a moment, he seemed almost grateful. Hate me all you want, he said, his amusement thin and cold. You will still drown all the same. Divvy, do something. Luffy shouted, yanking at the sea stone bars that kept him and his friends captive. Crocodile's smirk returned, patient and sure. See? Just like every other upstart begging for mercy. Luffy's pleading changed into a furious, stubborn roar. Vivi. If we die here, who's going to stop him? For a moment, Crocodile hesitated, the faintest flicker of interest crossing his face. Then the line returned. Condescension that hardened into a sharper smile. You think you can? You insolent little small-minded insect. You're the small-minded one, Luffy spat, the insult raw and honest. A dangerous light stirred in Crocodile's eyes, quick and animal. He chuckled low, dismissive. If you are going to abandon them, now is the time, princess. You still want to stop the rebellion, do you not? He turned toward the stairs with the casual intent of a man closing a book. Robin and Gaara followed him through the shimmer of the inner hall. The chamber shook as a bananadile, drawn by the scent of rising water and panic, smashed up through the floor below like a submerged terror surfacing. Then, a thin, oddly cheerful voice crackled from somewhere in the chaos. Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Robin's hand slid into her pocket and produced a Den Den mushie stamped with a Baroque Works emblem. She put it to her lips and answered as if taking attendance. Yes. Who is this? Hey, is this thing working? Never used one before. Give me that. Barked another voice in the background. You just talk into it. Oh. Well, why did you not say so? Crocodile's jaw tightened. The voice meant something. It tugged at a pocket of memory he did not like to have disturbed. What happened? He demanded. Welcome, sir, the caller drawled, slow and mocking. This is the shitty restaurant. The warlord's lip curled. What did you say? Ah, so you do remember me. I am touched, the voice continued, delighted by the disturbance it had caused. From the distant cell, one of the captives shouted a single name before the next wave of water drowned it out. Sanji. Crocodile stared at the snail on the stone for a long breath. Who the hell are you? Me? I am no one special. Call me Mr. Prince. The tone shifted. Crocodile's patience contracted into something sharp. Where are you right now, Mr. Prince? I am not sure I should say, came the smug reply. If I tell you, you will come kill me. You test my patience. That is like me pretending I do not know who you are, Mr. Zero. We all know you, Crocodile. The line erupted. Hey, who are you? Shouts clattered across the receiver in a mess of panic and bravado. A cacophony of noise erupted from the handset. No, stay away. Stop. Don't do that. For a heartbeat, the room was more noise than sense. They could all hear the scuffle on the other end of the line. Punches, kicks, and shouts all echoed through the Den Den mushie until everything stopped with the resounding retort of a gunshot. What is going on up there? Crocodile barked, voice hard as he moved toward the hatch. The wheezing reply met him through the snail. We got him, tough bastard. Hello? Anyone there? What do we do with this guy? Where are you? Outside the casino. Crocodile smiled slow and venomous, the motion like the parting of a curtain. Good. Keep him alive, he said. I will deal with him myself. He dropped the Den Den mushie and crushed it beneath his heel. The porcelain shattered with a brittle private crack. Let us go, he said, and the room surged with the rhythm of command. Gaara watched him move, taking in the small, precise cruelties. The man liked to break things that stood in his light and then admire the wreckage. That, Gaara decided, was his real power. Making destruction look inevitable. Soon, the man would feel that destruction he loved so much himself. Wandering tides. Sanji's plan worked perfectly. The Den Den mushie act, the fake conversation, the chaotic gunfire, the staged death, was a performance of precision. He even killed one of Crocodile's men mid-show, the pistol shot echoing through the hallway like punctuation. The body dropped instantly, painting the golden wall behind it red. Crocodile's forces believed every word, every sound. The illusion was flawless. Sanji lowered the pistol with the same calm he used to set a plate on a table. No hesitation. No flourish. Only control. Naruto didn't flinch. Shinobi didn't. But it caught him off guard all the same. He had expected a chef who kicked people into orbit, not a man who could kill without a tremor in his hands. He gave a low whistle. You really sold it. Sanji slid the pistol back into his coat and lit a cigarette in the same motion. Play the fool long enough and people forget you're dangerous. Naruto smirked. Yeah. Been there. For a brief moment, the two men shared a quiet understanding. Killers who had learned to hide behind laughter. Then they moved, slipping back into the chaos. They had barely reached the gaming floor when the next storm hit. Vivi burst from the basement, drenched and gasping, eyes wide with panic. She didn't see them as she sprinted toward the exit. Outside, one of Naruto's clones stood on the bridge, shouting at the top of his lungs. "Hey, Croco bitch. How's it feel knowing everyone finally sees you for the scum you are? Vivi, get back." Naruto shouted. She turned, confusion flashing across her face, and Sanji tackled her to the floor just as the world exploded. The blast tore through the casino. Fire rolled through the entrance, the bridge disintegrated in a rain of molten gold, and the shockwave flattened every sound around them. When the echo faded, smoke curled through the wreckage. Sanji stood, furious, ash smearing the white of his shirt. "What the hell, you damn fish cake. Were you trying to kill Vivi?" Naruto wiped soot from his face, wincing. "Relax. Maybe I used a little too much, but nobody died. That's not the point." "Eyes." Vivi's voice cracked. "The others are trapped downstairs. They're going to drown." That ended the argument. One look passed between them, and they ran. The basement was chaos. Water slammed against the transparent walls, the roar almost deafening. Inside, 3 massive bananadiles thrashed around a sea stone cage, circling like sharks, while the Straw Hats fought to keep their heads above the flood. One of them ate the key. Nami screamed. "Which one?" Naruto shouted back. He pointed with a dripping hand. "That one. Or the one that looks like Luffy's mom. They all look the same. This isn't funny." "I'm not joking." Sanji didn't wait for permission. "I'm coming, Nami Swan." He dove in like a black bullet, a flash of suit and fury, and began to kick the closest croc with a rhythm all his own. Give. Kick. Me. Kick. The. Kick. Key. The final boot sent the beast slamming into the cage. It roared, spittle and foam, but still no key. "Shitty crocs," Sanji snarled, spinning into another attack. Naruto waded through waist-deep water, hand braced on the sea stone. "What the hell is this made of?" "Sea stone." Nami yelled over the roar. "It blocks devil fruit powers. Harder than diamond." Naruto's grin split his face. "Guess I'll just hit harder than diamond." He formed the seals with one hand, then another, feeling the chakra settle into the center of his palm. Screw it. The Rasengan bloomed, a tight, screaming sphere of wind and chakra, and he drove it into the lock. The air shattered. The sea stone groaned, hairline fractures spidering outward until the shackle gave with a ring like a snapped bell. "Move." Naruto roared. The lock broke. The door flew. The Straw Hats poured out into the rushing water. Luffy barreled forward first, Zoro hauling a sputtering Usopp and a soaked cursing Nami at his heels. For a breath, they thought they were safe. Then the chamber screamed. Sanji's final kick had slammed a bananadile into an already cracked wall. Glass exploded. The whole room collapsed inward. Water hit like a fist, and everything dissolved into motion. Cold, violent, endless. The current dragged 2 figures down with it, Luffy and Smoker, black shape swallowed by the lake, their strange bodies slipping toward the bottom as the curse of the sea did its cruel work. Naruto cut through the water like a blade, grabbed the rubber captain by the collar, and began clawing back up. "Being a pirate who can't swim is ridiculous," he grunted when he broke the surface, hauling Luffy onto the sand. He stomped on the captain's stomach until a geyser of water shot from the boy's mouth. Luffy coughed, eyes rolling back, then split into a grin. Shishi. That was awesome." Zoro came up next, dropping Smoker's limp form at the edge without ceremony. He spared the marine no rescue. Charity had its limits. One by one, the crew crawled out, bruised, soaked, and breathing. For all the chaos, everyone was alive. Luffy leaped to his feet, hat wet, grin wide. "Where's Crocodile? I'm not done punching him yet." Naruto shook his head, half amused. One-track mind. Smoker coughed, sitting up and hauling his jut free of the sand. He spat water from his mouth, eyes narrowing into coal. "Doesn't matter where that crook ran off to," he rasped. "I'll arrest him right after I'm done with you." Naruto stepped forward, rolling his neck. "Luffy, go. I'll handle Smokey. You need to get Vivi to the capital. I will catch up." The captain hesitated, then saw the grin, one that said trust me. Luffy nodded. "Don't lose." He turned to the others. "Come on. We've got a lizard to fry." Sanji paused long enough to light another cigarette. "Don't die, Blondie." "Wouldn't dream of it." Smoker seemed to have other plans. The street was already filling with smoke as the marine tried to capture them all. "Ah!" Naruto said, wagging a finger. He clapped his hands, chakra surging through the air. Fton. Repshma. Wind release. Gale palm. The blast of air roared outward, shredding the fog and hurling debris down the street. The haze tore apart, revealing Smoker standing in the open, his coat whipping like a banner. "Let them go," Naruto said, voice low. His crew just saved your life. Smoker reformed fully, shoulders squared, expression unreadable. Maybe so. Pirates are still pirates. Law's the law. Naruto tilted his head. Why doesn't it apply to everyone equally? From where I stand, it seems like there are more people who get to ignore the law than not. You should think about that after we're done. Smoker's jaw tightened. You think you're walking away from this? Not thinking, Naruto said evenly. Knowing. You've got nerve, Smoker said, tightening his grip on the jut. Not many stand their ground when they see me. Naruto smirked. I'm not most people. Ask Garp about me after I send you home with your tail between your legs. Smoker lunged, body unraveling into vapor mid-charge. The jut struck through the air like lightning, aiming for Naruto's chest. He twisted aside, caught the weapon mid-swing, and wrenched it free with a sharp jerk. Hey. Naruto barked. I wasn't done talking yet. Never interrupt a man in the middle of an important speech. That wasn't important. You were prattling, Smoker said flatly, dissolving and reforming around him. Now hold still. You're under arrest. Anyone ever told you you've got a short temper? Naruto shot back. Smoker's only answer was another explosion of smoke. It came like a tidal wave, coiling through the street, thick and choking. Naruto vanished inside the wall of vapor. The sound of boots striking stone echoed like drumbeats in fog. White blow. Smoker's voice thundered. Smoke lashed out hard and fast. Each tendril struck like a hammer, slamming into the cobblestones where Naruto had been seconds before. The blows shattered barrels, splintered stalls, and sent shards of stone scattering across the street. Naruto's silhouette flickered between bursts, fast, sharp, measured. Dropping the jut, he ducked under one strike, twisted past another, and landed low in a crouch. His fingers blurred through seals. Dawn. Repshim. Wind release. Gale palm. A burst of wind hit like a cannon, ripping through the fog in a wide arc. The mist scattered, and Smoker went tumbling back several meters before reforming mid-slide, boots grinding trenches into the dirt. You fight like a pirate, Smoker growled. A tendril of smoke grabbed the jut. Naruto straightened, grinning. No. I fight like a shinobi. He charged before Smoker could vanish again. The marine's jut came down in a heavy arc. Naruto caught it on his forearm, the sea stone tip biting into his skin. He ignored the pain, twisted his hips, and used Smoker's own force to redirect it. The weapon turned sharply and slammed into Smoker's ribs. The marine folded around the strike, crashing through a wall in a burst of dust and stone. Naruto brushed debris from his sleeve. Guess I'm the one making arrests now. Smoker reformed from the rubble, blood streaking the corner of his mouth. You've got spirit, he rasped. But spirit doesn't win fights. His arm snapped forward, smoke swirling into a massive fist that crashed down like a hammer. Naruto leaped aside, boots scraping the stone, then countered with another surge of wind that carved a spiral through the street. The shockwave threw sand and shards into the air. The plaza became a blur of wind and vapor, two forces colliding, reforming, and colliding again. Each impact echoed like thunder. You call this justice? Naruto shouted through the storm. Smoker's voice was quiet but absolute. I call it duty. Then your duty's in the way of actual justice. The marine's body split into a dozen streams of smoke that converged on him all at once. Naruto braced as the cloud engulfed him, wrapping around his limbs, his chest, his throat. The air thinned until breathing hurt. White out. The world disappeared in gray. Every inch of smoke pressed against him, cold and crushing, the pressure squeezing his lungs. He could feel the man's discipline in every movement, precise, unrelenting, trained. Naruto gritted his teeth. Fine, he hissed. You started it. He pulled his chakra inward, compacting it until it felt like his chest might burst. Then he released it. Dawn. Tatsumaki. Wind release. Tornado. The air exploded. The resulting vortex ripped the smoke apart, sending it screaming upward into the sky. The wind carved scars into the ground and hurled Smoker across the plaza, smashing him into a line of pillars that shattered under the force. Naruto walked through the storm, breathing hard but steady. The street was torn open behind him, the fires from the casino painting the ruins in molten gold. He hefted the jut, the weapon heavy with sea stone. Don't forget, he said, I still have this. He hurled it. The jut struck Smoker square in the chest, cracking his ribs and driving him backward into a heap of marines rushing to assist. They went down in a tangled mess. Naruto stood over the wreckage for a moment, then looked toward the desert. A massive sandstorm was rising on the horizon, heading south straight for Yuba. His expression hardened. Damn it, Luffy. I thought you had him. Turning back to Smoker, Naruto waved. Sorry, Smokey, but I gotta go. Smoker staggered to his feet, clutching his side. You're just running from justice. Naruto's voice softened. No. I'm buying time for it. You may not be able to do the right thing here, but I can. He stepped back, the faint swirl of leaves already beginning to rise around him. Until next time, Smokey. And if you see Garp, tell him I'm waiting on that rematch. The gust came and went. When it cleared, Naruto was gone. Smoker stared at the empty street for a long time, the jut lying cracked in the sand beside him. Wandering tides. Me, Luffy croaked weakly. Naruto sighed and crouched near the edge of the sinkhole, shaking his head. The boy looked like a corpse someone had forgotten to bury. His skin was shriveled, his clothes torn, and his hat lay half buried beside him. Well, looks like you lost round 1 with the croc, Naruto said quietly, flicking a pebble into the pit. Can't say I'm surprised. You've got the heart to beat him, just not the patience. Luffy didn't respond. His cracked lips twitched, a sound escaping that was more air than voice. Meat. Naruto huffed a tired laugh. Yeah, I heard you. He leaned back on his heels, scanning the dunes. The world had gone still again. The winds and the storm had drifted south toward Yuba, no doubt, to bury Toto yet again. Naruto would have to make sure he passed through to dig the town out once more. Footsteps broke the silence. He has quite the one-track mind, said a calm, measured voice. Naruto turned. Ms. All Sunday and Gaara approached from the west, their shadows stretching long in the dying light. Robin's dark coat trailed across the sand, moving like a second shadow. Gaara followed behind her, expression unreadable, eyes like amber glass. Without a word, a dozen hands bloomed from the ground, lifting Luffy's limp form from his sandy grave. The arms moved gently, almost reverently, before setting him down at Robin's feet. She crouched beside him, studying his ruined body with clinical calm. Why do you fight? She asked, not to anyone in particular. Her tone was soft, curious, the kind of question asked by someone who already knew the answer and still wanted to hear it aloud. Those who bear the name of D, you throw yourselves against fate again and again. But for what? Luffy didn't move. His fingers twitched weakly toward the half-buried hat. Robin picked it up, turning it over in her hands. The brim caught the sunset, a faint gleam beneath the dust. After a moment, she tossed it lazily. Naruto caught it. He fights because it's right, he said, brushing sand from the rim. You should try it sometime. Robin straightened, her eyes finding his. Her gaze was calm, assessing. You're quite a mystery. Men like you don't just appear in deserts like this. Uzumaki Naruto, shinobi, pirate Naruto said easily. Champion to those who can't stand up for themselves. Her lips curved faintly. Gaara neglected to mention the specifics. It's a pleasure to meet properly. Gaara neglects a lot, Naruto said. Especially when he's pretending to work for a coward. That earned him a raised brow and a quiet chuckle. Coward? No. Crocodile fears nothing, that's the problem. She hesitated, then inclined her head slightly. Nico Robin. Naruto smirked. See? That wasn't so hard. Now tell me what's your angle in all this, Robin-chan. If you were really as rotten as your boss, Gaara would have buried you by now. Her amusement lingered for a heartbeat. That would be telling, Goldilocks. Let's just say I prefer to stand beside monsters rather than under them. Aims, then? Naruto asked. Fine. Just don't pout when you lose. Robin's smirk faded into something quieter, not anger, but the faintest trace of respect. Enjoy your little victories while you can, Uzumaki. Alabasta won't survive the next one. From the sand below, a cracked whisper rose. Vivi. Robin's gaze softened, barely perceptible. She's safe for now, she said, voice low. But the rebellion's already marching on the capital. By tomorrow, Alubarna will drown in blood and sand. She paused, then looked at Naruto, really looked. There was something searching in her eyes, almost pleading, though she hid it well. If you mean to save her, you'd better move. She turned, her coat catching the wind as she began to walk. Gaara fell into step beside her, his gaze flicking briefly toward Naruto, an acknowledgement, a warning, maybe both. Naruto watched them go, Luffy's hat still in his hand. Tell your boss to keep the drinks cold, he called after them. My captain's gonna want a rematch. Robin half turned, her smile just visible beneath her hair. Then I hope he brings something stronger than courage. Naruto crouched beside Luffy, the boy's chest barely rising. That stubborn spark was still there, faint but alive. He placed the hat gently on Luffy's chest. Round 2's coming, he murmured. And I've got a feeling you're not done yet. Come on. Let's get you fixed up and make sure old man Toto's still kicking. Lifting Luffy over his shoulder, Naruto disappeared into the desert in a swirl of leaves. Chapter 3. Evening the odds. Robin stood atop the Alabastan royal palace, watching the chaos devour Alubarna. The city burned in the heat of its own madness, smoke and sand rising together in violent spirals. From her vantage point, the war almost looked beautiful. The symmetry of it. The futility. The chaos, the cruelty, and the inevitability of it all were reflections of everything she had experienced since the incident at O'Hara. It amazed her how blind people became once they believed themselves righteous. The cruelty they would justify in their pursuit. The rebels and the royal soldiers slaughtered each other in the streets, both crying the exact words. Truth, freedom, salvation. Each believed they fought for Alabasta's future. They were all wrong, of course. And the only two people who could end it, King Cobra and Princess Vivi, lay behind her, broken and defeated. Of course, the Marines and their justice were nowhere to be found. It clearly was not convenient for them to intervene at this time. Crocodile stood over their captors, savoring in his triumph far too early. Robin made no move to stop him. The Shichibukai reveled in confession, unspooling his grand design. The bomb buried at the city's heart, the drought and rebellion born from his manipulation of dance powder, and the careful deceit that had turned the kingdom's hope against itself. Every word was venom, and he took pleasure in every drop. For her part, Robin maintained the mask that had long since become second nature. The unfeeling witch. Detached, predictable, safe. After years of betrayal and exile, she no longer allowed herself the luxury of faith. She worked for her own ends and let the rest of the world crumble around her. It was a simple existence, tiring, empty, but safe. Still, though she would deny it, a glimmer of hope had appeared deep in her soul. First the Straw Hats, and now these shinobi. This time, something was different. Even so, it would not change. Crocodile ranked as the worst she had ever followed. Arrogant. Pitiless. Powerful. Consumed by a hunger for power that would not stop at anything. She had long questioned the intelligence of working with him, but the poneglyph remained her only goal. Whatever secret it held, she would never give it to him. A man like Crocodile would burn the world just to light his own throne. Even if I can't stop the rebellion, Vivi gasped, if I can stop the bomb, I can save lives. Robin winced inwardly. Admirable but stupid. The kind of naivety that got people killed. Crocodile's grin evaporated. In one smooth motion, he snatched the princess by the throat and lifted her high. You and your childish idealism have no place in this world, he hissed. You lack the strength to make your words real. Because of that, more will die, not fewer. If you'd stayed quiet, fewer graves would need digging. He stepped to the edge of the rampart, holding her over the abyss. All that's left is for you to join them. Die with the people you pity so much. And then he released her. Vivi's scream tore through the wind. Robin's fingers twitched, but she didn't move. Once, she might have saved the girl. Once, she might have cared. But empathy had long since been carved out of her. All that remained was survival. You know, came a voice from below, light and amused, I've always said the hero shows up at the last minute. Looks like I made it just in time. Robin's composure faltered slightly as Naruto Uzumaki stepped over the parapet. Despite defying gravity and the chaotic state of the capital, Naruto acted as if he were simply taking a stroll, Princess Vivi safely cradled in his arms. He set her down gently, flashing that same infuriating grin that seemed to mock the entire world. Robin folded her arms, masking her surprise. I was beginning to think you wouldn't make it. I'm late, but I hate missing a good party, Naruto replied with a shrug. Crocodile's expression turned murderous. I killed you. Yeah, well, Naruto said, tilting his head, I wasn't in the mood to stay dead. You really should work on your follow-through. Robin's lips twitched. Crocodile's glare could have cut glass, which only made her amusement harder to hide. Sorry for being late, Naruto went on. We were almost here, but a black cat crossed our path. Had to go the long way around. You wouldn't believe the crowd down there, people swinging swords, shooting guns, total lack of hospitality. Robin allowed herself a small smile. The sandstorm is blocking our view. I wasn't aware the welcome party below was so lively. Then again, it is a rebellion. You should have planned better. Yeah, well, can't do much about bad hosts, Naruto sighed. Anyway, what's new with you? And where's Gaara? Mr. 5 is tending to the door, Robin replied smoothly. As for me, the usual coup d'etat. Naruto feigned disappointment. A coup, huh? And here I was hoping for something exciting. Enough. Crocodile's roar shattered their banter. The sand at his feet began to churn. Naruto glanced at him lazily. Hey, we're having a conversation here. Ever heard of manners? He sighed dramatically. Fine, fine. You can join if you promise not to ruin the mood. I've had it with you, ridiculous pirates. Crocodile snarled. I'll bury you all like I did your pest of a captain. Naruto's grin didn't fade. Considering he's not buried and very much alive, I'd call it a failed project. Seriously, who dies in a sandpit these days? Amateur work. Luffy's alive. Vivi gasped, eyes wide. Naruto nodded. Yup. Tough kid. He should be here right about. Crocodile. The booming voice cut through the chaos below. A shadow leaped from the storm, a large toad, its tongue lashed out to hook onto the parapet. Luffy rode astride it, grinning wide and wild. The toad retracted its tongue with blinding speed, snapping forward and carrying Luffy to the rooftop. Luffy hit the ground running, fist cocked back. Crocodile sneered, unmoving. He didn't even bother to dodge. A mistake. The punch landed with a solid meaty crack. Crocodile flew across the rooftop and slammed into the far wall, blood streaking his lip. "See?" Naruto chirped to Vivi. "Told you he was fine." He turned to the toad. "Gamma, you're getting slow. I beat you here by a mile." The toad croaked indignantly. "Don't give me that," Naruto said, wagging a finger. "There's no such thing as cheating, only winning. If you can't handle a little D-rank ninjutsu, that's on you." Amma grumbled and vanished in a puff of smoke. "Stubborn toad," Naruto muttered. "Naruto, can you put me down now?" Vivi asked weakly, her cheeks flushed. He blinked. "Oh. Right." He set her down, scratching the back of his neck. "As entertaining as it is watching you make fools of everyone," Robin interjected dryly, "I should warn you, a bomb will destroy the city in less than 15 minutes. If you intend to play the hero, now's the time." "The bomb?" Vivi cried. "Naruto. We have to find it before it goes off." Naruto's grin softened just slightly. "Got it. One bomb disposal unit coming right up." He swung Vivi onto his back. "Hold on tight." He gave Robin a jaunty salute before leaping straight off the palace roof. Vivi's scream echoed all the way down. Robin watched him vanish into the storm and couldn't help but chuckle. This has certainly become entertaining. She returned her gaze to the rooftop battle. Luffy was slathering water across his fist so he could hit the Shichibukia. Luffy's attacks were wild and reckless, but there was something in them that Crocodile couldn't comprehend. Even as his body broke, Luffy refused to stop. She doubted he would win, but she watched anyway. When she finally turned away, it wasn't boredom that moved her. It was opportunity. With Crocodile distracted, she carefully released the stakes, pinning King Cobra to the wall and looped his arm over her shoulder. "Your Majesty," she said quietly. "Let's take a walk." Cobra didn't respond. The king was defeated. The pride of his station had vanished and a hollow man was all that remained. Robin guided him into the palace shadows, humming softly to herself as battle raged above and the city burned below. "It's a beautiful day for a stroll," she mused. Wandering tides. Naruto landed hard in the palace square, the roar of battle swallowing his arrival. Soldiers and rebels alike turned toward him and the still screaming Vivi, weapons raised, faces twisted by exhaustion and rage. For one tense heartbeat, neither side moved. Then both sides charged. Naruto flexed, ready to meet them, but he didn't have to. Two blurs cut through the mob. Zoro and Sanji crashed into the fray, scattering men like bowling pins. "How dare you jump off that building with Vivi-chan?" Sanji shouted, booting a rebel into the fountain. "If even a single hair on her head is." "Nice to see you too, Sanji," Naruto said dryly. "Eyes. You're all okay?" Vivi cried, relief cracking her voice. "Of course we are," Nami called, stepping over a pile of unconscious bodies. Chopper and a heavily bandaged Usopp hurried behind her, Pell gliding down from above. Everyone did their part. The moment almost felt peaceful until gunfire shattered it. Tattooed thugs spilled into the square from the side streets, the Baroque works insignia burned into their suits. "Princess Vivi." One shouted. "Killing you will make us rich." They didn't last 5 seconds. Sanji's kicks broke bones, Zoro's blades flashed twice, and Pell's talons ripped through the air. Naruto finished the stragglers with a single sweep of wind that flattened the rest. He surveyed the wreckage, hands on his hips. "This city's a mess. Time for some house cleaning." Turning to Vivi, his tone hardened. "Go with the others. Find that bomb." The words hit like a cannon shot. The crew froze. Nami squeaked. Vivi looked at him, pale. "What about you?" Naruto grinned. "Crowd control." He crossed his fingers, flaring his chakra. "Taj Kage Bunshin no Jutsu." The square exploded in white smoke. When it cleared, hundreds of Narutos stood shoulder to shoulder, each one grinning like a maniac. "Go on, Vivi Heim," they chorused. "We'll handle the riffraff." The original smirked at Vivi's dumbfounded expression. "Don't worry. I'm a professional." The clones surged outward like a living tide, separating soldiers, disarming rebels, and forcing both sides back. For the first time since the rebellion began, the killing slowed. "Move." Naruto shouted to his friends. "I'll hold the line, but that bomb won't wait." Vivi nodded sharply, rallying with the Straw Hats and Pell. The group scattered, disappearing into the war-torn streets. Naruto turned to join his clones, then froze. Across the plaza, Robin slipped out from the palace shadows with King Cobra at her side. Gaara followed close behind them. Naruto's instinct screamed at him to follow, but another instinct screamed louder. He ducked. A volley of black quills sliced through the air, shredding the space where his head had been only moments before. The projectile struck stone with sharp cracks, embedding deep. Naruto looked for the source. A short, stocky man in a crisp black suit stood across the square, his body bristling with metallic quills that jutted from his arms, legs, and scalp. His expression was one of pure disgust. "Uzumaki Naruto," he barked. You are wanted for the murder of government officials, impersonation of delegates to the world government, and other heinous crimes against order. Naruto raised a brow. Really? I don't feel very wanted. In a blink, he was beside the man, poking one of the spines on his arm. So devil fruit, huh? Gotta say, it's not exactly stylish. The agent's eyes narrowed. Surrender or die. Hirinazumi Gan. Porcupine gun. A storm of quills erupted from his fist. Naruto flipped backward, the barrage slicing through the space he just vacated. He tossed a handful of shuriken back towards the man as he flipped away. Hekai. The man's body hardened like steel, and the blades bounced off harmlessly. He sneered. Child's play. You think tricks like that compare to government training? Naruto sighed. Everyone from your side talks the same. All about justice and obedience, never any self-awareness. Tell me, have you ever stopped to ask if your orders are worth following? All who defy absolute justice, the man thundered, will die beneath it. Yeah, Naruto muttered. Sounds about right. I should introduce you to Abisu. The agent lunged. Hirinazumi Rankyaku. Porcupine Stormleg. The blade of compressed air slashed toward Naruto. He bent backward, letting it pass inches above his face. It wasn't enough. A hail of quills hidden behind the blade peppered his skin. The tiny barbs stuck in his cheeks, tracing his whisker marks. Naruto froze. Then, slowly and dangerously, he smiled a not-so-innocent smile. That's it. He tore the quills free, blood streaking down his face. I get enough grief for these already. You just made it personal. In a flash, he was behind the man, hands clasped and fingers extended. Senengarashi. 1,000 years of death. The strike launched the agent like a cannonball. He smashed through a building, sending bricks and dust into the air. Naruto pumped a fist. How do you like them apples? He paused, frowning. Man, that felt extra childish. Before he could move, a surge of cloned memories hit him, images of a massive bananadile tearing through the city. The ground shook beneath his feet. Of course, Naruto muttered. Crocodile brought a pet. Rankyaku. Hyakisen. Stormleg, 100 lines. The warning came too late. A wall of cutting air slammed into him, hundreds of invisible blades tearing across his chest. Naruto flew backward, crashing through a building and out the other side. He groaned, half buried in rubble, his shirt shredded, blood trailing down his jaw. Damn, that actually kinda hurt. Dragging himself upright, he rolled his shoulder until it popped. Alright, no more games. A few quick hand signs, and he slammed his hands into the ground. Doten. Yumi Numa. Earth release, swamp of the underworld. In a blink, the cobblestone street liquefied into a bubbling black sludge that ensnared all within its grasp. Buildings sank. Carts vanished. The stench of sulfur filled the air. Naruto stood atop the mire, unbothered as the agent sank into the muck. My control's shoddy at best with earth jutsu, Naruto warned. If you want to live, start talking. Never. The man gasped, fighting to keep his head above the surface. A hiss rose from the swamp as his skin began to blister. Naruto crouched beside him, voice cold. Your loss. This is a swamp that I have summoned from the farthest reaches of Mount Myaboku. Composed of all sorts of oils, toxins, and excrements from the toads that live there, it is just about the nastiest substance on the planet. If you're lucky, you'll drown before it eats you alive. Naruto flicked a bit of the sludge at the man, smiling faintly as it hissed. He leaned closer, eyes narrowing. Now. Who sent you? He grabbed the man by the collar to prevent him from sinking further. The man screamed as the ooze burned through his flesh. The agent's face twisted in defiance. Quills shot from his scalp, stabbing through Naruto's hand. The blonde didn't even flinch. I was being polite before. I was content to play your game, Naruto said softly. But now I'm on a schedule. He pulled the man closer until their eyes met. The playful grin was gone. In its place was a predator's calm. You attacked me, he said, voice low, dangerous. Now you're going to tell me who gives you orders. The agent gagged as the swamp bubbled higher around him. The noxious black sludge hissed against his skin, releasing a foul steam that stung Naruto's eyes. You won't get anything from me, the man snarled, voice shaking between pain and pride. You're already dead. You and that monster with the sand. Naruto's head tilted. Gaara. The agent laughed, half-joked and feral. You think the world government wouldn't notice someone like him? A weapon walking around without a leash. The moment he appeared, Lasky sent the word. All Cipher-Pol units were to watch for him and anyone with him. Capture or kill on sight. Naruto's voice dropped. So that's it. You weren't here for me. I was here for the rebellion, the agent spat. We were ordered to monitor the collapse of Alabasta to make sure whoever wins is useful to the government. But when I saw you, both of you, I knew what I had to do. His lip curled in contempt. You're a threat to order and justice. Naruto stared at him for a long moment. Order, huh? You mean the kind that decides who's allowed to live free? The kind that keeps the world standing, the agent hissed. We enforce it. Without the government, there's only chaos. He gritted his teeth, body trembling as the swamp ate through his clothes. We're here to contain the rebellion. Nothing more. The royals begged for help long before your kind arrived, but the government saw no point in saving a country too weak to govern itself. His eyes gleamed with conviction despite the pain. We will let it fall. From its ashes, a loyal kingdom will rise. One that remembers its place. Naruto crouched, eyes sharp, the grin gone from his face. You don't get to decide that. He pushed his palm deeper into the ground. The swamp tightened, dragging the agent's body another few inches under. The man screamed as the muck hissed against his skin. You're wasting your time, he gasped. There are dozens more like me. We'll drag the sand user to impel down in chains if we have to. Naruto leaned closer. Not today, you won't. The agent thrashed, trying to free his arms, but the sludge only hardened. You think this changes anything? He shouted. The world government doesn't lose. You can kill me, but the orders are already out. Every agent in the field knows your faces. The sand user will be contained, and you. Naruto cut him off. You talk too much. He pressed his chakra into the swamp again. The black pool churned, rising around the man's chest. The agent coughed and clawed at the surface, but the more he fought, the faster he sank. Wait. He rasped, desperation finally breaking through his defiance. You can't. The rest drowned in a gurgle of mud and air. The swamp stilled, swallowing the man's words and body both. Naruto stood over the settling mire, breathing hard but steady. His hand was bleeding again from the embedded quills, but he ignored it. Lasky's calling the shots, he muttered to himself. Sifripol is hunting us. He supposed it was inevitable. Still, they were responding faster than Naruto had expected. At least they didn't know where they were. The agent being here for the rebellion was good for Naruto and Gaara, even if it was bad news for Alabasta. Naruto turned away, pulling his hand free from the cooling sludge. The stench clung to him, a mix of oil and blood. Somewhere in the distance, another explosion shook the city, followed by the roar of a massive creature. Perfect, he muttered. Looks like it's my turn again. He vanished in a blur of wind and dust, heading toward the chaos to the east. The only trace of the Sifripol agent was a dark, hardened mound where the swamp had been. Wandering tides. Gaara exhaled with quiet satisfaction. At last, something he could hit. Something he could vent his frustration on. Only Naruto could have landed them in a mess like this. Trouble followed the blonde like a religion, and somehow, he always ended up at the center of it, chaos swirling around him as naturally as air. Gaara knew his friend rarely caused these disasters directly, but that never stopped him from attracting the kind of problems that changed worlds. After years of fighting for peace, the elemental nations deserved their rest. Instead, here they were again, dragged into another war on foreign soil. The world government and its territories dwarfed their homeland in both size and reach. They wielded that power without restraint. Every encounter so far had only confirmed it. Between their arrogance, the position his own leaders had put them in, and the instability of these seas themselves, Gaara knew this would explode sooner or later. The only question was the cost. He pushed those thoughts aside. Robin had left him to guard the palace gates while she retrieved King Cobra with Crocodile. Rebels and royal soldiers alike attacked him. As a third party, Gaara had drawn fire from both sides. None of them lasted long. Pulverizing each wave of attackers was, admittedly, therapeutic. He could have gone easier on them, but shinobi were not known for mercy, Gaara least of all. His orders were simple. Protect Robin. Anyone who stood between her and her goal was an obstacle to be removed. He'd felt Naruto's chakra earlier, bright, impossible to miss, but his friend hadn't come to confront Gaara. Typical. Naruto chased a source of the chaos while Gaara dealt with what came his way. The rhythm of battle broke when Robin reappeared at the base of the palace steps. Crocodile was gone, but the tall, dark-haired figure beside her was unmistakable. King Nefertari Cobra leaned against the wall, blood soaking the cloth at his shoulder. 2 stab wounds, painful but not fatal. Robin moved ahead, unbound and unhurried. The fact that the king followed willingly put Gaara instantly on edge. Time to go, she said simply. Gaara fell into step behind her. When a handful of royal guards made one last desperate attempt to reclaim their ruler, he flicked his wrist. Sand surged from the ground, swatting them aside like flies. Impressive as usual, Robin remarked without slowing. They wound through the city streets, not attempting to hide their path. Anyone foolish enough to block their way vanished beneath Gaara's sand. The further they walked, the quieter the city became. Smoke and blood thinned into silence. That calm broke when they turned a corner and found themselves facing a whole regiment of Marines. Rows of rifles gleamed. Gaara recognized the insignia from Rainbase, Smoker's men, but their captain was missing. At the front stood his subordinate, Master Chief Petty Officer Toshigi. Robin's eyes narrowed. Move. I have work to do and I don't have time for misguided marines. We can't do that, Tashigi said firmly, stepping forward. Naiko Robin, for crimes against the world government, you're under arrest. Come peacefully or we'll use force. Robin's mouth tightened. Even now, with the city burning, you cling to orders. You'd be better off saving civilians than hunting a single person. She began to cross her arms, but Gaara raised a hand, stopping her. I believe I am still contracted as your bodyguard, he said quietly. He stepped past her and addressed Tashigi directly. Part of leadership is knowing when to retreat. In consideration of your men, I suggest you do so now. Tashigi held his gaze. She was afraid. He could sense it, but her stance didn't falter. She truly believed her duty outweighed her fear. Consorting with a wanted felon and interfering with a marine operation are crimes, she declared. Men, arrest them both. Her voice shook only slightly, but to Gaara, it sounded like a death sentence. He sighed. Don't say I didn't warn you. While she spoke, his sand had already seeped into the ground beneath their formation. With a flex of his fingers, the street buckled. The entire regiment sank waist deep into shifting grains. Shouts turned to panic as marines clawed for purchase that no longer existed. Gaara squeezed his fingers, tightening the sand around them. Bones creaked, lungs strained, as he poured on the pressure. He watched Tashigi's expression harden. When the first man began to lose consciousness, he eased his grip just enough to let them breathe. If you don't learn from this, he said, his voice cold and even, your life will be short. Know when to retreat so your subordinates live to fight another day. He opened his hand and released the pressure. The marines gasped for air as their weapons sank out of reach. Gaara turned to Robin. After you. Robin smiled faintly and stepped forward, leading Cobra through the half-buried soldiers. As she passed, she kicked sand toward their faces, coating them in dust. The lesson in humility, she murmured. But they will never learn. Neither she nor Gaara looked back. Wandering tides. Naruto stood on the edge of a shattered street, watching the enormous bananadile rampage through the city. The creature dwarfed the ones he had seen in Rainbase, its scales glinting like green armor beneath the smoke. Every swing of its tail reduced buildings to rubble. Every step crushed soldiers and rebels alike beneath its weight. Well, it's not exactly subtle, Naruto muttered, but I'll give it points for enthusiasm. Gunfire and cannon blasts peppered the monster's hide to no effect. Blades bounced uselessly off its scales. It roared and swung its tail again, sending another squad flying. Naruto sighed. He could summon one of the toads, but the collateral damage from that kind of brawl would level half the city. Better to handle it himself. He crossed his fingers, forming a handful of clones. Alright, boys, priorities evacuation. Get everyone out of its path. The clones nodded in unison and scattered. They dove through the smoke, dragging wounded civilians and soldiers alike out of harm's way. Within moments, the streets began to clear. Naruto stepped forward, placing himself directly in the bananadile's path. Up close, he realized it rivaled Gamabunta in size. Its yellow eyes locked onto him, and for a heartbeat, both predator and prey simply stared. I don't like reptiles, Naruto said. And you're having way too much fun picking on the small fries. He rolled his neck until it cracked and flexed his hands. How about someone stronger? The creature roared and charged. Naruto launched himself upward, spinning midair, and drove a heel into its snout. The impact slammed the bananadile face first into the street, splitting the cobblestones and sending a shockwave through the city. Dust filled the air. The ground trembled. For a moment, Naruto thought it might stay down. Then the beast lifted its head and snapped its massive jaws around him. Oh, hell no. Naruto grunted, bracing himself between its teeth. His arms trembled, the serrated fangs slicing into his forearms. I refuse to be eaten by some stupid reptile again. Wind chakra exploded from his palms and feet, shredding the creature's teeth. Naruto kicked off, flipping backward out of its bleeding mouth and landing in the street below. The monster reeled, bellowing in pain. It shook its head, then charged again, jaws wide. Naruto didn't move. He waited, breathing evenly, until the creature was nearly on top of him. Forming the ox, rabbit, and then the dragon hand signs, Naruto held out his right palm. Electricity crackled to life in his right hand. The chakra formed into a misshapen ball. Naruto dropped it, drew his foot back, and shouted, Raiden. Kagasadon. Lightning release. Scorching bullet. Naruto kicked it hard. The glowing projectile wobbled unsteadily, dancing left and right as it rocketed through the air. It vanished down the bananadile's throat. A split second later, the world went white. The blast ripped through the creature's core, bursting from its belly in a surge of lightning and smoke. The sound was deafening. When it cleared, the great reptile collapsed in a smoldering heap, its scales scorched and smoking. Naruto exhaled, grinning victoriously. One of his clones jogged over. Boss, we got everyone out. Good work. You and the others clean this up. Naruto tossed him a sealing scroll. And seal up this croc and send it to Bunta. Not a snake, but close enough. He can call it therapy. The clone smirked. You want me to ask for sake, too? This will be a pretty good offering. Of course. We're gonna need it when we report to Bachan. The clone laughed. You got it, boss. Naruto left his clones to handle the cleanup and vaulted onto the nearest rooftop. From there, he could see across the entire city, including the palace. His efforts were making a difference. Still, he had lost a good number of clones. Naruto made 100 more and released them into the city to continue diffusing the battle. Naruto noticed a figure staggering along the roofline of the palace, while another walked away. Crocodile had won round 2. Damn, Naruto muttered. I hope I'm not too late. Naruto vanished in a swirl of leaves. In a flash, he reappeared atop the palace. Luffy looked terrible. His clothes were shredded, his body covered in cuts and bruises. He lay motionless, eyes half shut, the faint rise and fall of his chest, the only sign of life. Luffy? Naruto crouched beside him, reaching out to shake his shoulder. Before his fingers reached the boy, Luffy shot upright with a shout. Ah, that was a great nap. Naruto flinched back as the boy turned his head left and right, blinking in confusion. Naruto. Where'd that stupid croc go? He was right here when I fell asleep. I still need to kick his ass. Naruto stared at him, then burst out laughing. You're unbelievable. I swear, someone up high likes you. You've got 9 lives and then some. He went that way, Naruto said between chuckles, pointing toward the far end of the city. Come on. I'll go with you this time, make sure you don't fall asleep again. Thanks Naruto. Luffy grinned and started running. Naruto followed, only to collide headfirst when Luffy stopped after a few paces. Join my crew. Luffy shouted suddenly. You can be the ship's alarm clock. Naruto froze mid-step, then face-planted into the ground. Is this guy for real? He groaned, pushing himself up. Luffy, if you ever make an offer like that again, I'm joining the Marines out of spite. Then we'll have to fight. Luffy chirped. That would be fun. Focus, rubberhead, Naruto said, brushing dust off his coat. We've still got a warlord to flatten. Luffy clenched his fists, grin wide. Right. He stretched, limbs whipping like rubber bands, then launched himself off the roof and into the distance. Naruto sighed, watching him go. Somehow, I'm the responsible one. Wandering tides. The towering black stone at the rear of the royal tomb dominated the chamber. Its surface drank the torchlight and the carvings cut into it were impossibly precise. Gaara could not read the script, but it reminded him of a passage from the first Kazukige's journal. A stone like this had passed through Wano once. Robin was enthralled. She traced symbols with her eyes, lips moving soundlessly. In the week Gaara had known her, he had never seen her look so alive. Like Naruto and like himself, she carried a shadow that never left. Some part of her past was carved as profoundly into her soul as the symbols before her. He let the thought go. When his work ended, their paths would likely part forever. So what does it say? Crocodile's voice rolled into the chamber as he stepped through the dust. Where is Pluton? It does not mention Pluton, Robin answered. It is a chronicle of Alabasta's founding, written centuries ago. I see, Crocodile said. That is too bad. You were a useful partner. You built Baroque works into what it is, but our agreement ends here. You failed to deliver what you promised, and I no longer need you. He lunged. His golden hook flashed toward Robin's head. Gaara appeared between them, effortlessly catching the blow. I believe this is why you hired me, Gaara said, voice flat. Yes, Robin replied, blinking once. She had not seen him move. Thank you Gaara. She faced Crocodile. I knew you would betray me like everyone else, so I brought insurance. Crocodile laughed. You bring this brat as insurance. He is barely better than that straw hat brat I killed. He tore the hook free and slammed his other palm against Gaara's forearm. Nothing happened. Gaara stared back, unruffled. Even Robin lifted a brow at that. Crocodile studied him, jaw tightening on the cigar. Perhaps you did pick someone of worth. A shame he dies for your selfishness. He twisted the hook, shedding the gold shell to reveal porous metal slick with violet sheen. This scorpion venom is the most poisonous substance west of the red line. It kills quickly and badly. The tomb shuddered. Dust shook loose from the ceiling. Gaara turned to Cobra, staring at the bound king who had been left against one of the pillars. So you went through with it. Cobra had been discreetly working away at the pillar base for some time. Now a carved brick sat at his feet, removed from the column. That is the idea, Cobra grunted. As king, it is my duty to protect Alabasta from those who would destroy it. If I die doing so, so be it. Our secrets will be buried, and our enemies with them. I only needed you all in the same place. Well said, Gaara allowed. Admirable, but you forget who he is. He inclined his head toward Crocodile. He commands sand. Without me, you would have guaranteed his victory. Cobra hesitated, realizing the truth of Gaara's words, but the column had already begun to fail. You act as if your presence matters, Crocodile said, amused. I will kill you. I will kill Nico Robin. The king will die in his own tomb. I am sand. I cannot be buried, and I cannot be beaten here. No one is unbeatable, Gaara said evenly, sand issuing forth from his gourd. When you become sand, do you still have to breathe, or do you truly become sand? The grains floated around him for a heartbeat before his hand flicked forward. The sand split, sweeping in from both sides and closing around Crocodile. The Shichibukai swung his arm in a sharp arc. The flow stuttered for a moment but refused to heed his call. A brief look of surprise crossed his features before he dissolved into a roaring cloud, slipping through the tightening dome like wine through a sieve. Gaara reached for that swirling dust and felt his chakra slide across it like oil on water. No grip, no anchor, no iron fleck to bind. Crocodile's sand belonged to Crocodile alone. Unfazed, Gaara pressed his palm into the stone floor. Renden Suna Shigur. Successive shots. Sand drizzle. Bullets of chakra-hardened sand erupted from the tendril and hammered through Crocodile's reformed torso, shattering against the far wall. The holes in his body sealed instantly. Through them, Crocodile's grin glimmered, jagged and amused. I am the desert, he laughed. You think to kill me with my own element. He stabbed his hand into the ground. Desert Spada. A blade of sand ripped across the chamber, cutting a clean path through everything in its way. Gaara rolled aside, letting the blade hiss past, and swept his arm to raise a wall between them. The attack shattered against it in a spray of grit. Another column cracked. Dust and debris rained from above, the tomb groaning under its own weight. Seikmzet Ibn Jio. Shukaku no Tate. Ultimate defense. Shield of Shukaku, sand coiled around Gaara, expanding outward into the hulking shape of a one-tailed tanuki. The massive sand guardian lifted its arms and braced the collapsing ceiling. The tremors eased, though flakes of stone still fell like snow. Impressive, Crocodile called, reforming behind him. You bought time. It will not save you. The sand blade lashed out, striking Gaara's armor with a hollow crack before dissolving into dust. The Kazakiage did not even glance back. His hand rose, fingers spread. Sabaku kick. Sand binding coffin. Sand burst upward around Crocodile, swirling into a perfect sphere. The Shichibukai was trapped. Sabaku SMSM. Sand waterfall funeral, Gaara clenched his hand into a fist. The sphere compressed violently inward. Then, silence. No muffled scream. No blood-stained sand. Nothing. For a heartbeat, Gaara waited. The quiet pressed on him like a weight. Something felt wrong. Dust stirred near the far wall, pulling itself together into a shape. Crocodile's rasping voice came first, followed by his grin. Impressive. You trapped me. None have done that. But even if you can control the sand, you cannot kill me with it. Nobody can. Gaara's eyes narrowed. Everyone can be killed. All it takes is one mistake. A thin spike of sand snaked behind the warlord and lunged for his spine. It struck nothing, passing through a body already dissolving. Too slow, Crocodile sneered. I made one mistake early in my career and it cost me my hand. I've spent 20 years making sure it won't happen again. I am a Shichibukai. One of the 7 warlords of the sea. A pretender like you could never defeat me. Gaara's expression hardened, eyes cold as desert glass. We'll see. Chakra flared around him, the air itself vibrating. The floor began to liquefy under his control as sand swallowed the chamber inch by inch. He would bury Crocodile here, drown him in his own element. As much as I would love to see you crush this bastard, a voice drawled from the doorway, you're interfering with an unfinished fight. Gaara turned. Naruto stepped into the crumbling tomb, dust curling around his boots, eyes steady. Behind him limped Luffy, bloodied, bruised, but burning with stubborn fire. Gaara considered ending it anyway. He could feel the power humming at his fingertips, the weight of the room ready to collapse at a gesture. Then he met Luffy's eyes, saw that reckless, unbreakable will, and let the chakra ebb. Fine, he said, stepping back toward Robin and the Winded King. But end it quickly. I am done holding the roof up. The Tanuki construct dissolved to emphasize his point. Crocodile laughed. Still alive, Straw Hat. You can barely stand. I have beaten you twice. Even if your princess finds the bomb, it is on a timer. Thousands will die. You failed. You're wrong, Luffy said. His voice shook with fury but did not waver. I will surpass you. I will win, because I am going to be the Pirate King. Crocodile lunged. The hook drove into Luffy's side. The boy grunted, planted his sandal, and stamped down. Metal shattered. In the same motion, he spun and kicked Crocodile across the chamber. How? Crocodile snarled. You have no water. Then he saw it. Blood slicked Luffy's skin and shirt. Dozens of shallow cuts ran across his body. A liquid film clung to him and broke the desert's touch. No matter, even without my powers, I will still crush you, Crocodile said, a blade sliding from his gauntlet. He jabbed. Luffy palmed it away and answered with a bone-shattering punch. They went at each other and the tomb began to die. Luffy's wild, elongated attacks brought down pillars. Crocodile's razors chewed trenches through the floor. Sand howled through the air while blocks fell and shattered around them. Neither cared. They focused exclusively on each other. Luffy caught Crocodile with a clean blow and hurled him upward. Stone rained around them. Desert razors, Crocodile shouted as he dove off the ceiling, a flurry of blades forming at his sides. I will surpass you. I will be the Pirate King. Luffy filled his lungs until his body ballooned. He expelled the air and shot upward, arms pulled back until they trembled. Gomu Gomu no storm. The hail of fists met Crocodile in a thunder that swallowed the room. The storm of blows drove him higher, through stone, through earth, and into the sky above. For an instant, Crocodile saw blue. As he tumbled back towards the earth, he saw a city still standing. The bomb had not gone off. He had failed. Then he fell and did not rise. I told you he could do it, Naruto said, hand out. Pay up. Gaara grunted and pressed a folded bill into his palm. Naruto flickered and reappeared with Luffy slung over his shoulder. Now that this is all done, and you've worked out some of your anger, are you ready to work with me to fix this mess? If I do not, there will be a war by the end of the week, Gaara said. I still blame you. Technically, we were already in one. Naruto glanced at the wreckage. Did you see this place? Quiet, Naruto. Sand stirred at Gaara's feet. Naruto held up his hands in surrender. Right. Totally my fault. Turning to Cobra, he asked. What do you say we get you back in charge of this country? They moved for the exit. Gaara paused. Robin stood amid the ruin, head bowed. Are you coming? She shook her head. No. All the scheming, all the betrayals, for nothing. I am a blight that should not have survived. Leave me. She tossed a vial towards them. The antidote. Give it to Straw Hat. Why do you want to die? Naruto asked. He poured the liquid into Luffy's mouth without looking away from her. What haunts you so much that you would rather quit than fight? You would not understand, Robin murmured. I have been marked for death since I was a child. It is not worth it anymore. Never give up, Luffy whispered, barely audible. If you cannot depend on yourself, depend on me. I will take responsibility for you. And me, Naruto added, gentle for once. Gaara and I know what it is to be hated by everyone around you. It gets better. The tomb trembled again. Time was gone. Naruto met Gaara's eyes. Gaara nodded. I will show her, Gaara said. Get them out. We will not be welcome here after this. Naruto nodded. Take a clone too. A clone popped into existence and moved to join Gaara. Naruto hauled Luffy and Cobra toward the stairs. Gaara faced Robin. We have a few stories, he said quietly. Hear them first. If you still want to die after that, we will not stop you. Something flickered in her eyes. Small, but real. She hesitated, then nodded. Wandering tides. A week later. Naruto. Join our crew. Luffy shouted from across the royal dining table. The royal palace had been loud all week. The Straw Hats were recovering under the care of King Cobra and Princess Vivi. Partying may have been a more apt description. As bruised and broken as the juvenile crew had been, their recovery had been full of laughter, bickering, and celebration. Never-ending food and drink carried the friends from Sun well into each night. Naruto did not need the rest, but he stayed anyway. There were connections to make and questions to answer. Cobra had shared much with him, some good, some grim, but above all, it filled in the gaps that had plagued Naruto since leaving home. Naruto. Luffy yelled again, mouth full of food. Join us. From behind a small orange book, Sanji peeked up with a smirk that could only mean trouble. We could use a scribe, he said. Someone to write down our adventures. Naturally, that person would be required to distribute his other works to the crew. Yeah, what Sanji said. Luffy agreed, tearing into a leg of beef. Naruto rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Writing a book about pirates on the Grand Line could be cool. But who says I'd write about you? This Gold D. Roger guy sounds way better. I'm going to be the Pirate King. I'll be way better. Luffy shouted, spraying half-chewed meat across the room. Naruto wiped a chunk of roast from his face. Alright, Luffy. Quick quiz. Fire, earth, water, wind, and lightning, which element's the strongest? Fire. Like Ace. Luffy answered without hesitation. Wrong again. Naruto grinned. It's wind. No way am I ever admitting Sasuke Team's stupid fire beats my wind. The crew blinked at him, completely lost. Sorry, Naruto said with a laugh. Old argument between me and a friend back home. We've fought to a draw more times than I can count, but we never figured out who's stronger. Even if he cheats with those creepy monkey eyes of his. The confused silence deepened. Naruto scratched the back of his head. It'd take too long to explain. Just remember this if you ever meet a guy named Sasuke, he's a cheating bastard. A super strong cheating bastard. You're stronger, a calm voice said from the corner. You just refuse to kill him. The crew turned. Gaara stood near the wall, arms crossed. Zoro's hand went to his swords and Sanji rose instantly. Luffy waved them down. It's okay. Love guy's on our side. Naruto froze. Then he burst out laughing so hard he nearly fell off his chair. Love guy. Oh man, how has nobody called you that before? Because if they had, Gaara said evenly, they would have died. Naruto's mouth snapped shut. Good point. Gaara stepped closer, unbothered by the laughter. The Marines have finished their cleanup of Baroque works and started searching for you, he said, looking directly at Luffy. They began at the coast, but your ship has been moved to safety. What? Nami shouted. Where did you move it? Who gave you permission to move our ship? Usopp added. Gaara lifted a hand, silencing them. Not me. Mr. Two handled it. He produced a Smeldon Den Mushi. As if on cue, it began to ring. Sanji, being closest, picked it up. The Kama rescue. Bone Clay's voice shrieked through the receiver. Sanji calmly hung up. The snail rang again. Sanji sighed and answered. Yes. Did you just hang up on me? Luffy lunged across the table, snatching the receiver. A Kama guy. Love guy said you took our ship. Give it back. Is that Straw Hat Chan? I'm so happy you're alive. Bone Clay sobbed. Naruto leaned back in his chair, looking at Gaara with weary amusement. I take it all back. I don't want to know what happened while we were separated. Pain and suffering, Uzumaki, Gaara said flatly. That's the only repayment I'll accept. A chill ran down Naruto's spine. Right, yeah, that's probably fair. He glanced toward the Straw Hats, who were now arguing loudly with Bone Clay through the snail phone. What about our new friend? He asked quietly. She was still mulling things over when my clone dispelled. Gaara tilted his head toward Luffy. She chose him. But after hearing our story, she knows she can call on us if she ever needs to. Naruto smiled faintly. Good. No one should live a life alone, especially not one marked for death. Wandering tides. Later that night, the palace was quiet. The echo of laughter and clinking dishes had faded, leaving only the soft breath of desert wine through open halls. From the balcony, Alyabarna stretched beneath the stars, battered but alive. Lanterns burned where fire had raged days before. Naruto rested his arms on the railing, eyes tracing the horizon. I'm impressed at how quickly they've been able to clean this place up. Another week and you'll hardly be able to tell there was a war here. Gaara joined him, silent for a time as the wind carried faint laughter from the streets below. Peace never lasts as long as people hope. Yeah, Naruto said softly. But it's still worth chasing. He gave a slight grin. Cobra said something earlier that peace isn't something you rule. You stand in front of it and take the hit so others don't have to. He chuckled. Sounded familiar. Because it is, Gaara replied. We've done the same first in Wano, now here. Naruto's gaze lingered on the glowing rooftops. The king reminds me of us. Still standing after everything tried to knock him down. Gaara's eyes stayed on the dunes. Stone stands until the wind wears it away. Maybe, Naruto murmured, but even worn stone leaves its shape behind. He turned, leaning back against the railing, wind tugging at his cloak. Cobra gave me some ideas ways to keep that storm from reaching home again. Not just home. Everywhere. That sounds like trouble. Naruto smiled. It's me. When has it ever not been? For a long while, they stood in silence, listening to the quiet hum of a city daring to dream again. Finally, Gaara said, when we leave tomorrow, there'll be no going back. I know, Naruto replied. Guess that means we're finally doing it right. The desert wind picked up, sweeping across the balcony, scattering dust and carrying their faint laughter into the night. What if post-war Naruto was in One Piece? End here, and thanks for watching my video till the end.